I will read the following. Pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021, this meeting of the Budget and Finance Committee is being conducted both in person and via remote participation. A reminder that persons who would like to listen to or view this meeting while in progress may either attend in person at the location above or use any of the following access locations. So you can find us on Facebook, YouTube, and there are several people logged on right now on Zoom. Before we begin, councilors, there are minutes to approve from March 10th and May 12th, 2021. Is there a motion to approve those minutes? There's a motion by Councilor Giovanni Rodriguez to approve the minutes of March 10th, 2021 and May 12th, 2021. It was seconded by Councilor De Rosario. We'll make a call for a vote. All those in roll call vote. Councilor Levy?
Yes.
Councilor Rosario?
Yes.
Councilor Rodriguez?
Yes.
And the chair votes in affirmative. We now move to item 1622, order to expend grant funds, Title III grant for $11,030. Director Velez is here. Director Velez, if you can state your name and address for the record.
Good evening, Martha Velez, Director of Health and Human Services, 155 Haverhill Street. I'm here today for your approval to expend the grants for $11,030. That's from Title III monies that comes from Elder Services, federal monies, which now Elder Services, so that everybody knows, is called Age Span. And they put out an RFP, and we thought it would be feasible for us to put something together. What they want to do is, after all this COVID and social isolation, they wanted us to come up with innovative ways to bring people back and seniors back in mental health and wellness. So what we decided to do is write a small grant on having ambassadors, people that really know our center, to be going out into the community and really bringing people back to the center so that they can get to know the center.
Councilors, is there any questions? Councilor Levy, did you have a question?
Yes. So, Martha, I have a question for you.
Sure.
So this is for social isolation and also to hide it or to work with six more people. So you have it. So this is what I do not understand. That you say that this is that to building a capacity of total 16 ESAs.
No, I didn't say, did she say 16? I'm sorry.
Director Velez, I believe she said 6.
No, it's really to take 3 elders to become ambassadors of the senior center, along with my staff, to really have people that of the age that we represent go out in the community and bring people into the center. And also, when they're there, these people become like the mentor buddies of how to get along and how to really like interact with the people that are there, because they know how the center functions.
Councilor Levy.
Yes, you're going to train 6 more people. So you have 10 at this moment, or?
Councilor Levy, she's going to train 3 more people. She's going to train 3 people, 3 elders.
Volunteers, they're not paid. I can't hear her.
Councilor Levy, it sounds like you might be on mute.
No? Can you hear me? I'm
Yes,
not
ma'am.
mute.
We can hear you now.
You can hear me now? Because I was not mute. So my confusion is, like they say, it's a total of 16. But she's going to start with 6 right now, no?
3.
Councilor Rodriguez.
Okay. So, can you hear me? Maybe I should take my mask off, huh?
So I think, Director Velez, I think the confusion might be that in the presentation, there's a mention of a total of 6 ESAS. But it sounds like from your presentation that perhaps there are already three.
Correct.
There's already three ESASs, and this is to train three others.
Correct.
So it would be a total of 6, with the hopes that at some point we will have the capacity to have 16.
Correct.
That is correct. Councilor Levy, do you have questions?
No, it's okay now. All right.
Thank you.
Councilors, Councilor Rodriguez?
Well, thank you for the opportunity. So the $11,030 is going to be for the personnel that are going to be training those elders, right?
Correct.
And that's going to be as a stipend for the people working at the center, or that's going to be somebody new that is going to come to train those people?
It's a supplement to one of the staff members that I have there.
So it's some stipend, right?
Yeah. Well, not a stipend, it's a supplement. So if we fund people and we don't have enough money to fund the whole position, we find grants, and those grants will add up to be able to fund that person.
Oh,
So not as, it's not like an additional stipend to what they make.
I got you. All right, so it's person's going to make the same amount.
Correct.
And that's going to be part of their salary.
It supplements
like-
their salary, correct.
Got you. All right, no problem, no more questions, thank you.
Councilor, is there anybody else that has a question? Director Velez, thank you for this presentation. I would say I think a lot of our elderly are in this state where they are alone. And even if they are lucky enough to have family around them, you know, they're not able to go out and do the things that they usually like doing. There are issues, you know, even, you know, my grandma went to church a few weeks ago. I know my family didn't want her to go out. She went to church. She came back, you know, and got COVID, right? Luckily, she's fine. But I know that things like that are scary for our elderly. So I think any opportunities that we can take to engage and make sure that, you know, I think we are social beings, and I think that that's part of ensuring not just mental health or physical health. If somebody's alone by themselves, they'll get depressed, and I think that is sort of a bad standard of living. So I appreciate the work that you're doing. I wish you luck, and those of your staff in doing this work. Councilors, seeing as there are no other questions, there a motion?
I'll make a motion to send it to the full council with a favorable recommendation.
Second.
There's a motion to send this to the full council with a favorable recommendation by Councilor Rodriguez. It has been seconded by Councilor Rosario. We will now move to a roll call vote. Councilor Levy.
Yes.
Councilor Rosario.
Yes.
Councilor Rodriguez.
Yes.
And the chair votes in affirmative. We will move to the next item. It looks, Director Velez, like you're still here before us. Item 1722, order to expend grant funds, earmark grant of $30,000. Director Velez.
Thank you once again. Martha Velez, 155 Haverhill Street, Director of Health and Human Services. This earmarked was really gratitude to Representative Marcos Devers, who for the past 3 years has put an earmark towards the center, and this earmark really covers for the administrative part of what we do for ESL classes, English classes, citizenship classes, evening English classes, and again, this is like a supplement to a staff person being paid. So this is a way for us to find monies to be able to have staff. And what we do is, you know, we offer classes during the day for seniors, and in the evening, what we do, we offer classes. And it's, right now, we're not doing it, but we will be doing it. Normally, we don't run classes in the winter. We run classes from March all the way till November, and right before Thanksgiving, we take the winter break. Instead of having like 6 weeks, we run right through March all the way to November without like taking breaks. And what we do is we help those immigrants or people that have just arrived that cannot pass the test at the Adult Learning Center. We prep them for them to pass the test, so they have like a sounding board to start the process.
Councilors, are there any other questions? See that there are no questions, there a motion?
I'll make a motion to send it to the full council with a favorable recommendation.
Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion to send this to the full council with a favorable recommendation by Councilor Rodriguez. Has been seconded by Councilor Levy. We will move to a roll call vote. Councilor Rosario.
Yes.
Counselor Levy,
Yes.
Counselor Rodriguez,
Yes.
and the chair votes in affirmative.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you, Director Velez. Counselors, I would like to just move a little bit around in our agenda to make sure that we're able to take care of some of the easier or quicker business. Could I get a motion to take up item 2122, to take it out of order?
Second.
I'll make a motion.
So there's a motion by Councilor Rodriguez to take item 2122 out of order, has been seconded by Councilor Levy. We'll do a roll call vote. Councilor Rosario?
Yes.
Councilor Levy?
Yes.
Yes.
And the chair votes in affirmative. We have now item 2122, order to expend grant funds FY22, naloxone grant up to $10,454.50. Director Bernal. Thank you. Director Bernal, if you could state your name and address for the record, please.
Of course, Eileen Burnell, 257 Mount Vernon Street, Lawrence, with the Lawrence Police Department.
Thank you. Is there anything you would like to just to present this grant?
Sure, just the Mass Department of Public Health has provided the city with funding for Narcan and Narcan-related products every year. Typically, they would give us one large lump sum. This year, they changed their funding formula statewide that they gave out as you used it. So they initially gave us $4,000 that the council already approved back like in October. And so when we spent that money, we sent in our report. They then said to us, do you anticipate needing more Narcan for the year, which we would. So they then give us another $10,000. So we may be back a third time, I guess is why I tell you that, because typically we spend about $20,000 a year on Narcan. And rather than get that one lump sum, the way they're doing their formula this year, just a little bit different. So at this time, they're saying that they can foresee us needing $10,000 for the second and third quarter, and then we can go back to them again for additional funds in the fourth quarter if we would like that. So just so you kind of understand why we don't usually come before you 2 or 3 times a year for Narcan. We usually get one big lump sum. So this is just a little bit different.
Thank you, Director Bernal. Councilors, are there any questions? Councilor Rodriguez.
Thank you. So when we talk about Narcan, we have to talk about overdose.
Of course, yep.
That's the reason that we have this grant. In terms of compared to last year, how many overdose we have so far this year? Well, obviously, statistically,
Sure.
Let's talk about 2021, which is better off. It's only 3 weeks on this year. So in 2021, how many overdose we got? How much of a use we have for Narcans, and how we distribute those around the department, or if we provide it to the public.
Sure. So the Narcan that we buy is for the police and fire department. We don't provide it to the general public. So we buy all the Narcan for the city, which would be police department and fire department. So there's not a separate application from the fire. I do not have the number for you, and I apologize for how many Narcans we've had. I mean, how many overdoses we've had, how many times we've needed to use Narcan. We do have Narcan in every vehicle in our department. All the cars, the school cars, the administrative vehicles, and the cruisers all have Narcan in them, and the fire vehicles all have Narcan in them. I can get you that figure, and I apologize that I don't have it for you.
Just get that figure. I
Absolutely, yep.
mean, sometimes you don't use Narcan when you have an overdose because probably another agency already used it, or it's no need for it, or probably the person passed. So in general, how many overdose we have in the city of Lawrence, and a statistic around there. So because
Sure,
I mean, sometime I remember when I joined the council 6 years ago, we have the state coming in, and we have other agencies. Because that was a huge deal back then. Now we kind of like not talking about it, but still probably a problem in the city. But we don't have that statistic. So around Narcan, perhaps overdose, just provide us with something, quick update
You
out
got
of,
it.
what we're doing in the city of Lawrence.
I can do that, no problem. I probably won't get it to you before Friday or Saturday, but it will get to you this week,
Yeah,
absolutely.
thank you so much. I mean, we're going to be seeing this next
Yes,
Tuesday.
yeah, it'll be next Tuesday.
By then, that will be great. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Counselor.
Councilors, any other questions? Hearing no other questions, is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to send it to the full council with a favor recommendation.
Is there a second?
Second,
There's a motion to send this item to the full council with a favor recommendation. Has been seconded by Councilor Levy. We will now move to a roll call vote. Councilor De Rosario,
Yes.
Councilor Levy,
yes.
Councilor Rodriguez,
Yes.
and the chair votes in affirmative. Thank you,
very
Director
much,
Bernal.
Counselor.
We'll see you
Appreciate
next
that.
week.
See you next week, thank you.
Councilors, the city has an important communications that they'd like to deliver for item 152-21. Can I get a motion to take this out of order?
So move.
There's a motion to take item 152-21 out of order. Is there a second?
Second,
It's been seconded by Councilor Levy. A motion was made by Councilor Rodriguez. We move to a roll call vote. Councilor De Rosario,
Yes.
Councilor Levy,
yes.
Councilor Rodriguez,
Yes.
and the chair votes in affirmative. Director Ianello, I believe that you have a report. This is order to expend grant funds, coronavirus local fiscal recovery fund for a total of $57,351,845. Thank you, Director.
Yeah, good evening, councilors. Well, we have some, just gonna remove my mask since no one's near. We have some, this item here is considered ARPA funding or local federal relief funds. And we have $57.3 million as outlined here, and it's before the council to request approval to expend those grant funds. We've been putting together a package of how to expend those funds for the last few months. With the mayoral transition, the new mayor is putting together a list as well. In the meantime, just last week, we found out that the final regulations for the ARPA funds came out a couple of weeks ago, and in those final regulations, there is a calculation for a revenue loss. In other words, what that is what the city's receipts were before the pandemic, which was 2019, versus the city's receipts in fiscal year 2020. If you had a loss of funding, you could use the ARPA funds to recover that loss. Well, in the city of Lawrence's case, the loss is quite substantial because in 2018, we had the Columbia Gas disaster, and in 2019, we received settlements of those funds. For example, 31 or 32 million to redo the roads in South Lawrence, 10 million to reimburse or 15 million to reimburse the city for the costs incurred. And then during the pandemic, there was also receipts received by the police and fire department for outside details as they dealt with the emergency. So all told, we had approximately $50 million in settlement funds in FY19 that, of course, we didn't receive in FY20. So in our case, our revenue loss was calculated at 82-point-something million, 82.6 million, I believe. Have it here, exact number here in front of me somewhere. And of course, our revenue, our ARPA funding is only 57 million. So in the city's particular case, the ARPA funds attributed to a revenue loss are the entire ARPA funding allocation, which is 57.3 million. And the reason why that's important is that the revenue loss, whatever the revenue loss calculated is, whatever the revenue loss that is calculated by each community is, the federal government allows us to use that revenue loss for any purpose for which a government could use in the city of Lawrence, whatever general purpose government use we could use for this revenue loss, we can pretty much use it for any particular thing that we've expended. So what we plan to do, or what I plan, my recommendation to the mayor and to the city is that we have the city council approve the expenditure of ARPA funds for the revenue loss, since it all qualifies as such. And the revenue loss can then be, the city at the end of the year, we can transfer our expenditures from our operating budget to the revenue loss, using the funds for any particular purpose. And at the end of the year, we would have an opportunity to close our books with 57 million unexpended in the general fund, and that would obviously turn into free cash in the fall by the Department of Revenue. So in essence, what I'm suggesting is that the city has a unique opportunity to transfer ARPA funds and to use the ARPA funds for this revenue loss purpose, which is any general government expense, which we are incurring this year, and turn this money into free cash. The reason why that's important is for an agenda item that we're going to be talking about, which is for the Leahy School. It gives us an opportunity to fund that Leahy School, which ordinarily we would not be able to fund. So that it's a unique opportunity for the city to and also allow a project that's been deemed, I think, by pretty much everyone that we need a new Leahy School. I know it was rejected by the voters because it would have required a tax increase. It no longer requires a tax increase, and we will now have reserves in which to pay for this a Leahy School. So that was just a general announcement I wanted to make. It's kind of a complicated process, but I could certainly entertain any questions that councilors may have.
Director Iannello, thank you so much for bringing this news. I think it's extremely important news, extremely important for the city. I know later on we will be talking more about the Leahy School, but I think that this is really important, game-changing information. I'd like to open the floor to see if any of the councilors have any questions for Director Iannello. Seeing that, Councilor Rodriguez.
Ooh.
Councilor Rodriguez, is this about ARPA? So it looks like the item for the Leahy does not have.
Mr. Chair, can we bring up the Leahy School plan as of before we bring the ARPA money, since I would like to hear the plan for the Leahy School before I take a vote on the ARPA money, which it makes sense because obviously the plan is to transfer that money, or if there is a plan behind the Leahy. I would like to see if the plans correspond to the actual ARPA fund.
So, Councilor Rodriguez, there is no vote, well, at least I don't think that the administration right now is asking us to vote for the ARPA fund. Unless, to Director Iannello, are you asking the Budget Committee for a vote on the ARPA fund at the moment?
You certainly can. It wasn't my intention. My intention was to take it off the table so I could discuss it and update you, and then if you need more information before you actually take a vote, then I would like, maybe the next meeting we could take a vote if we answer everybody's questions. You're certainly welcome to vote on it tonight, to move it to the full council. That'd be great for me, but I understand you may have some questions, so.
Yeah, so Director Iannello, I think it'd be best for us, well, I mean, the council can make any motion that they'd like. What I would suggest to the committee is for us to hold, it's not time sensitive, for us to hold so we can get the exact language from the administration, and we can take it on at the next budget committee. Councilors, are there questions? If there are no questions, can somebody make a motion to table this item?
Well, I will have questions, but I mean, it is a news. Mm-hmm. So it's nothing that I have no information. So I hope that you can send us a little bit more information as of I read the news that the federal government actually easier those funds and be able to use it as what you explained, and you know, a little bit more of what a report, you know, writing reports of what you guys are going to do will help a lot, and that way we can discuss this a little deeper. But thank you for the update.
Counselor, go ahead, Counselor.
I want to make a motion to table item 15221.
There's a motion to table item 15221 by Counselor De Rosario. Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
It's been seconded by Counselor Rodriguez. We'll move to a roll call vote. Counselor Levy.
Yes.
Counselor Rodriguez.
Yes.
Counselor De Rosario.
Yes.
And the chair votes in affirmative. Can we, councilors, we will now take up item, there is no number, Lone Odor, Leahy Elementary School. We have Odanis Hernandez, Chief Operating Officer of LPS. If you can come and speak. So, Ms. Hernandez, so I know that there's several people that would like to speak. Would you like to give your presentation first, or open the floor for people to speak?
Thank you, Councilor. If you don't mind, I would like to give the folks that are here the opportunity to say a few words, and then I'll be happy to provide the presentation.
Sure. So normally during our committees, there is no public participation, but it's chair prerogative to allow folks to speak during these committee meetings. What I would ask, I know there's a lot of folks on Zoom that are interested in speaking, and there's some folks probably here there are as well. So what I'd like to do at first, I would like anyone on Zoom that would like to speak, if you can just write your name on the chat. I'm going to give the opportunity for the folks that are physically here the opportunity to speak first while folks populate. So if you can just write your name on the chat, I'd appreciate that. But first, I'd like to give the opportunity for School Committee Woman Patricia Mariano from District E to speak. She will be joining us on Zoom. School Committee Woman Patricia Mariano.
Yes, good evening, Chairman Payano. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you perfectly. Love your background.
And you know what? That background will remain until the new school. I can change the picture. Good evening, members of the Budget and Finance Committee. As you know, my name is Pat Mariano. I reside at 28 Ridgewood Circle. I am a member of the Lawrence School Committee representing District E, as well as a board member of the Lawrence Alliance for Education, and honored to be part of the Leahy School Building Committee. I have been before the City Council many times, asking that we as a community, along with the Massachusetts School Building Authority, come together to make the new Leahy School a reality. I'm not going to spend time speaking about the physical conditions of the school. Many of you have heard the stories, seen the newspaper accounts, and even have visited or plan to visit. Either way, I am certain your conclusion will be a simple one. Something must be done, and done quickly. The Leahy School was built in 1922. Yes, 100 years ago. And for 100 years, that school has educated countless students, altered many grade structures to meet the needs of the district, and been a leader in parental engagement, just to name a few highlights. Lest we forget, a building is just a building. In this case, what makes the Leahy unique is the community it serves. The Leahy is not just an elementary school. It has evolved into a community center, a place for parents to learn English, earn a GED, and receive valuable job information. A place where families come together and work with a dedicated staff to ensure their children are academically successful. It's time to say to our beloved Leahy School, happy birthday, Leahy School. For 100 years, you have served us well. You have helped us recognize the need for a new facility to accommodate our students and families. You have showed us that our students deserve the same opportunities as other Lawrence students in newer buildings across the city. You have showed us that the Massachusetts School Building Authority is willing to grant over $60 million to get the job done. And I, for one, along with many others, hear you pleading with us to get this new Leahy School built. As history will tell us, the Leahy School was named after Captain Francis M. Leahy, a World War I hero. On the day he was fatally shot in battle, Captain Leahy famously uttered the following instruction to his next in command that made the front pages of newspapers across the country. Lieutenant Hanson, the command is forward. See the boys through. I believe if Captain Leahy was with us today, he would be saying, citizens of Lawrence, the command is forward. Let's get the new Leahy School built. I urge you as a committee to send this loan order up for the full council with a favorable recommendation. The MSBA has given us until February 24th to secure funding or we lose the grant. We need you to work with your fellow councilors, the mayor, school department, the Leahy families, and the Lawrence citizens to get this school built. I thank you and I wholly appreciate everything you're doing to make this a reality for the children, the staff, and the families. Thank you.
Thank you, School Committee. Technical difficulties. Thank you, School Committee Woman Patricia Mariano. Now, is there anybody that's here that would like to speak? If you can please state, if you can come up, a school committee member. Let's have, if you can come in, if you can state your name and address for the record, and school committee, we'll have a school committee member go up next.
Hello, my name is Jose Salas. I live at 50 Allen Street. I am the proud parent of students at both Leahy and London School, and I'm here in support of approving the Leahy School project. I've been invited to walk through the school and see the bad conditions that it's in, and it's time for a change. Things are leaking, pieces of the ceilings are falling down, and as a parent, I want the best for our children. Thank you.
Thank you. School Committee Member Lenin Roja from District C.
Good evening. My name is Lenin Roa. I live at 36 Columbus Avenue in Lawrence, Massachusetts, and I'm here to advocate for the construction of the Leahy, the approval, and actually sending it up to the full council with a favorable recommendation. This school, it's in dire need of help. Our kids needs it. They need it. And it's great news that we have today from Mr. Aiello that this is happening, and we're going to be able to talk about more information on the ARPA money and how we can do this. So with that said, and with the kids in mind and our city in mind also, I implore you to please recognize and take into consideration the approval of, or the sending over this project over to the full council for a favorable recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, School Committee Member Roa. If, sir, if you can please state your name and address for the record.
Hello, my name is Dewey Byers from 102 Willow Street in Lawrence. I believe that the Leahy School project is a good investment for the Lawrence community because we need to change. This morning, I toured around both the Leonard and the Leahy, former schools I consider home for the years I stayed in, and it's sad to say that nothing has changed. In the Leahy, there was steam coming out of pipes. Any kid walking in the area has the danger of getting burned. 2 classes going on in the same time in the same room. The cafeteria staff having a hard time just to make pizza because of the lack of space and outdated appliances. The same computers I used when I was a kid, leakage coming down from the roofs. Also in the Leonard, having the same problems, still having the same problems, overpacked classrooms, leakage in pipes, students still having lunch in the classroom. But what stuck out to me the most was the beautiful team in the Leahy and the Leonard, persevering, putting all excuses to the side, coming to work every day, facing these challenges, running the school how it's supposed to be run. This new project being approved really means a lot to me because at one time I was one of those students, and I wouldn't imagine going to a school like that. Also, the community and the teachers and everyone that works in those schools really deserve it. With this new project being approved, the opportunities are endless. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. If you can please state your name and address for the record.
Yes, good evening. Patricia Montesquieu Remigio, 33 Crosby Street, Lawrence, obviously Massachusetts. My name is Patricia Remigio, as I mentioned earlier, born and raised here in Lawrence. I'm a fellow member of this community, a mom of two, a property owner, and have taught at the newest Lawrence High School for 3 years, and now at the Up Academy Leonard for 4. I strongly believe that the new Leahy School should be built for 3 reasons. 1, students deserve a safe space, a safe place to learn. If our oldest buildings are in unacceptable condition, it makes it difficult to accommodate students. Students also realize the deficits of our current schools, and this takes away from their focus on academics. As an employee of LPS, I stand here to say that we are all in need of a new, safe place for students to eat, retrieve their lunches, to play, socialize, learn, and transition from one place to another. Second reason why I advocate for this school is to plainly give space to our students. Our classes are crowded, and many times it is a challenge to provide the services our students need. Furthermore, there is currently no wall space or space outside of where desks are to make our classrooms rich of resources or to provide space for genuine collaborative learning. If our classrooms are the homes of our students throughout the day, they should have a place that gives them the opportunity to move more and learn more comfortably. Lastly, and probably the most sensitive point I would like to make is the amount of money that will be needed to build this new facility. I'm glad that no news was mentioned in regards to the tax increase, but I will mention it anyway. As a property owner, and how many of us are, it is a hard pill to swallow to know that taxes may be increased. Although this may be the case, apparently not, and hopefully not, I find that it is still a worthy sacrifice and investment to make for our students and our community. Lawrence has come together for so many things in the past, and I know that we can come together again for this project. I will end with this. Our students, our children, are really the future, and they truly deserve a safe place and space for the content and skills that they develop in these walls, and that will help them be the future leaders that we so desire. So thank you for your time.
Thank you for your words. Please. If you can please state your name and address for the record.
Jahaira Maria Fryer, 62 Sorrento Avenue, Methuen, Mass. My name is Jahaira, and I'm the principal of Up Academy Leonard. I stand before you today to urge you to approve the loan order for the Leahy School project. I was born and raised in the city of Lawrence, and I know what it's like to have a state-of-the-art building. Look at the auditorium at the Gilmet and the beautiful yard space at the South Lawrence East. The Leonard is a building that is over 100 years old. Our teachers and students have water dripping from the ceiling onto their books and materials as they're teaching and trying to learn. The building is so old that it can't sustain appropriate electrical work to add more outlets and internet connection for our students. We don't have adequate space for art classes or science labs. Our gym doubles as a cafeteria and an auditorium, but it's still not enough to hold 300 plus students. Even worse, our playground is often covered in glass and needles because it also doubles as a public park. A world-class education and facility should be the expectation in the city of Lawrence, not the exception. Our students deserve a facility that is safe and conducive to learning. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Is there any audience that would like to speak? Seeing none, we will move to Tricia Antelek.
Thank you.
Tricia, if you can please state your name and address for the record.
Sure. My name's Trisha Antelek. I live at 70 Beaver Lake Ave in Derry, New Hampshire. So I am a teacher at the Leahy School. I've worked there for 16 years. The big buzzword in education is equity. According to the National Equity Project, educational equity means that each child receives what they need to develop to their full academic and social potential. Well, our students at the Leahy School do not have what they need to develop to their full potential. What they have is a 100-year-old crumbling building, a building with a roof that no longer protects them from the weather elements. It literally rains inside the classrooms and hallways. The heating boiler doesn't work properly. We have hot steam coming out. We have leaking pipes, which is dangerous for the kids. The elevator stops in between floors, trapping teachers and custodians. The glass panels in the classroom doors are not shatterproof. And unfortunately, we had an incident where we saw that it's not shatterproof. Our students do not have a gym. There's never been a gym. There is no space at all, indoor space, for physical education or play. The cafeteria is very small, and the kitchen is a tiny galley with little room to prepare and serve over 400 lunches. Our classrooms are tiny. The EL teachers and special education teachers have to share rooms. That's basically 10 or more students on each side of the room with a whiteboard on wheels that serves as a partition. Imagine the distractions with different lessons going on. Our old library is no longer a library. It's in the basement and it houses 4 teachers, 4. 1 EL teacher, 2 reading interventionists, and 1 special education teacher. These teachers take 6 or more kids at a time while all teaching different lessons. These are kids who actually really need the extra help in small group instruction, yet they are cramped into a corner with distractions all around them. There's just no space in the building. It's not anyone's fault within the building. Where do we put these people? We have no real space to offer our BCBA, OT, PT, and speech personnel. They have to carefully schedule time in the one tiny room that has no window. Does all this sound equitable? Despite the deficit shared, we are truly able, and clearly nothing can stop. All can be something we continue to achieve. We need this new school. Our students and families deserve a safe building and a school with a gym. The new school will be a benefit to the entire community. Please help us. Thank you.
Thank you, Tricia. We now have Mariangela Ovando. Mariangela, if you can please state your name and address for the record.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Mariangela Ovan. I live at 138 Saratoga Street here in Lawrence. I recently moved to Lawrence about 4 years ago, and my child attended Leahy for his whole elementary years. From what I'm seeing, being new to the city, I see that building is very old and it doesn't look safe for the kids. One of the things that would benefit the school greatly is updating the old equipment. Like there's all the schools now, they have, new equipment and technology. I think that by providing new technology and equipment for the kids, they'll be more motivated to do their homework and then come to school. They will be able to have the more facility to utilize the new resources for them to be able to be brighter. So yes, I'm just here in favor of the new project, and I'm hopeful that it gets approved. Thank you.
Thank you, Mariangela. We now have Kimberly Barry from the Lawrence Teachers Union. Ms. Barry, if you can please state your name and address for the record.
Thanks so much, Mr. Chair. This is Kimberly Barry, President of the Lawrence Teachers Union. Dear members of the Lawrence City Council Budget and Finance Committee, I really hope that on behalf of the Lawrence Teachers Union, you hear our voice, which is enthusiastic to support the new Leahy School project, as we feel it's an extraordinary opportunity that's offered for our city and our school community. We by now are all familiar with the many pressing issues that make the Leahy no longer suitable for 21st century teaching and learning. As mentioned tonight, whether it's students having to travel from floor to floor to use a restroom, counseling classes being conducted in elevator entrances, or pools of water on classroom floors from rain pouring in from the leaky roof above. These are just some examples of the many symptoms of the building that can no longer be made suitable with basic upkeep and repairs. This project, however, represents so much more than just a fix. As currently designed, it's a dramatic step forward for our city's educational infrastructure, and it has the potential to impact generations of the Lawrence children through their entirety of K-8 learning experience. It will be a modern, forward-looking building, and it will reflect the great work that our educators are doing and the potential of our students and the ideals of both Lawrence Public Schools and Lawrence Teachers Union. While we recognize and deeply appreciate the significant long-term financial investment required from the city, we know that the long-term benefits that this investment will provide will be worth it. We hope that you'll make this important investment to create a truly special learning place for the Leahy neighborhood. We know our families, students, and educators truly deserve it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Barry. Else or on Zoom that would like to speak? If you're on Zoom, you have a lasting opportunity to put your name in the chat if you'd like to speak. Okay. Hearing Ms. Hernandez.
To approve $102 million, or send to council $102 million with favorable recommendation to build the new Leahy school. The Leahy school will be a K-8 complex, similar to the other complexes within the Lawrence Public Schools. It's been our educational plan to move our schools into a complex system. The benefit to that, it allows for siblings to walk together, be dropped off together by parents, and be in one building versus having to, what is currently happening now, having to drive or drop off or walk to the Leahy, and then the older siblings having to then walk or be dropped off to the Up Leonard. This new facility will merge two schools. It would continue to host the Leahy school students. It would add a kindergarten classes that we currently don't have. We needed to outsource to other schools within the district because we just ran out of space. So it will add 4 kindergarten classrooms, and then it would also bring the Up Leonard students, our middle schools, to this outstanding facility, new building, which I hope you had the opportunity to see in the presentation pictures that we sent for you tonight. I'm happy to entertain any questions, answer any possible questions that you may have about the project, the plan. It is a total new construction. It's just demolishing, tearing down the current Leahy building and then just building a new facility.
Thank you, Ms. Hernandez. I do have some questions. So, because I think that there's some confusion with the loan order that I want to make sure we clear up. But before I say that, I will say that, you know, last year when this item came before us in a different form, you know, I was in favor of it. I definitely campaigned for it and was sad when it wasn't voted up. You know, I think that this is, I know one of the teachers talked about equity. You know, this is not just to do something nice. It's about equity, it's about safety, it's about taking care of our next generation, not just our next generation, but, you know, the next 3-4 generations. The last Leahy School lasted 100 years. I hope this one can last almost as long. I say almost because I hope that future Laurentians don't wait 100 years to rebuild their schools. I remember seeing students come up here and talk about having you know, things of the ceilings fall down as they were walking by. To be honest, I'm surprised that in the last few years we haven't been sued by any of the parents as to the conditions of that school. So I think it's something that we definitely need to support, and it's I'm particularly excited about the fact that with the administration's recommendation, there's a possibility that this would be covered through other means. Now, the question that I have is around the loan order and the MSBA sort of process. So I think perhaps Director Ianella might be able to answer this. So I think what a lot of people, you know, in the community, what they're seeing us is take up a loan order of a little bit over $100 million. And what they're asking is like, well, you know, last year, what you guys were asking us is $40 million. So, you know, what occurred? I know that, you know, with the MSBA, there's a portion that's reimbursable. So if you can please just spend just a few minutes just talking about that and explaining that.
Well, this project is roughly a $103 million project, of which we've already paid approximately $1 million to do the feasibility study. That's why the remaining portion of this project is $102 million, which is before the council. That $102 million is the entire cost of the project, even though we expect to receive approximately 60% reimbursement from the Commonwealth or from the MSBA. And the city will pick up approximately 40%. So our share of the project is going to be $40 million, and roughly, and the state MSBA will pick up $60 million for the approximate $100 million cost. So that's kind of how it works. The reason why we have to borrow the entire amount is we pay for all the bills of the school, and then we get reimbursed from the MSBA after we expend the money. It takes approximately 3 to 4 weeks to get our check, but will be once a month you submit your invoices to the MSBA, and we'll get reimbursed for those cost proceeds. So because we have to front the money, that's why we have a loan order for the entire amount. We only anticipate borrowing the $40 million, which will be our share, but the MSBA requires us to fund the full cost of the project. And if you notice in the loan order, it does indicate that the loan order we're authorized to borrow up to $102 million minus the expected reimbursements from the MSBA. So if the MSBA reimburses us for $60 million, we'll be borrowing $40. If the MSBA only reimburses us for $50 million, we'll have to borrow $50 million. So we're limited to, we can't borrow the $102 million. It's $102 million less whatever the MSBA provides us. So as long as we manage the project in accordance with the MSBA's terms, we fully expect to get reimbursed $60 million.
Thank you, Director Ianella. I think that's super important anytime that we're dealing with this, that people understand the city spending, you know, a certain amount of money, that there's a investment being made by the state, and that essentially we're taking up 40% of that cost. But with that said, I think that there was definitely confusion out there, and I appreciate that you've been able to explain that. Councilors, do any of you have questions? Councilor Rosario?
Good evening. I don't know which of you can answer this. What will be the difference in this proposal compared to the question that was on the ballot?
Okay, well, the question before, the question on the ballot was to, it wasn't a loan order. The question on the ballot was to fund, are the taxpayers willing to approve a debt override for the expected debt service on the Leahy School and exclude that from the Prop 2.5 tax limitations. So what that would have done was allowed the city to comply with Prop 2.5 and whatever that normal bill would be, to add the additional bill attributable to debt service for the Leahy School, which is approximately, $2 to $3 million a year, is the anticipated. So that's what the vote was. It was just to to approve a debt override to raise people's taxes to pay for the Leahy School. So that vote failed, and now we're back because we have and I also have an updated CAFO memo, which I'm going to give to the council and distribute to all the councilors. And in my Cafo certification for this loan order, my original one prepared in December was that, we can still do the Leahy because we have excess taxing capacity. We can still tax the residents without a debt override because we have that ability under Mass General Law. However, obviously it's not a practical position for most people, but in December that was our option. Now our option is we have reserves, and so our option is either to we could increase taxes. We have approximately $8.3 million and $8.4 million in excess tax levy capacity. There is no effort on I'm sure there's no effort on any elected officials' part to use any of that excess taxing capacity, but it is available in case the city were to need it, or in case property values dropped. There would be, it's nice to have the excess tax levy capacity in the bank, if you will, in case we ever needed it for any recession purposes or real estate value depressions. This would really help us out. But we have no intention of doing that. So my new CAFO certification indicates that, yes, we can still use the excess tax levy capacity, but it's also expected to use reserves to service this debt service. And the debt service, if I may explain quickly, is our existing debt service. We have a lot of debt outstanding, a lot of schools we paid for, the high school and a bunch of other schools that are still outstanding. Well, that debt starts to fall off in the next couple of years. So as you recall, we approved the Oliver School several months ago. That project is underway. And at the time, I indicated we were building the Oliver School without a debt override because we had the capacity to, we had existing debt service projects were maturing and the bonds were complete. So between the years 2022 and FY28, we will need to supplement our general operating budget with perhaps some reserves, free cash reserves, if you will, to service that debt. But in 2028, we have roughly $5 million in debt service that is eliminated. So that will pay for the Oliver School and pretty much the police station, which was approved a while back as well. The Leahy School, again, debt service approximately $2 to $3 million. We would be adding, for the next 5 years, adding that debt service to the existing Oliver School and the police station debt. And we would want to supplement use reserves to supplement our operating budget for the next 5 or 6 years for that purpose as well. But also within, it's 2030, all of enough debt service falls off to even fund the Leahy School as well. So between now and, well, actually not now, because if the Leahy project bond were approved, we wouldn't be borrowing that for for more than a year. So that would not impact our FY '23 budget. It would impact our FY '24 budget. It would be the first time we would have to fund something for the Leahy School. So from FY '24 to FY '30, those 6 years, if we were not to have a tax increase, we might have to use some reserves to fund the debt service on the Leahy School. And I know we just received a bond rating increase just last week, which was very positive news. We did just borrow, yesterday we sold bonds at less than, at 2.69 interest costs for the Oliver School and the police station. So we're in really great positions. And one of the things that I always stress that the city does not do is use free cash for recurring expenses. And so that still falls in line, even though we're using it for some debt service in this case, debt service line item in the general operating budget, it really is for capital purposes, the underlying cost. So we will have a planned use of reserves to fund the next 5 or 6 years worth of operating budget. So and use reserves to fund that debt service for the Oliver School, the police station, and in this case, the Leahy School, if it is approved.
Councilor Rosario?
It's amazing how it sounds now, how clear it sounds. And it's also amazing how some of my colleagues now have tons of questions about how clear this is when back in the question, they were supporting that question. And to me, I'm sorry if I offend anybody, I call it a dark question because nobody had an answer to what it was. Nobody had an explanation. If you ask some of the supporters of the question, they didn't have no answer for you. Right now, that's why I ask you what was the difference and how clear it sounds, how the project is going to go. So hopefully, those that actually push the question without answers, hopefully will approve to push this project that now has an answer for it. Thank you.
And just to add to my comments as earlier about the ARPA funding, that certainly will help us help our reserve position with dealing with this Leahy debt service. And you know, again, the ARPA funds, which are we declare them a revenue loss, can be used for pretty much anything we want except for debt service, capital outlay, and so forth. But once we use that revenue loss for general government purposes, then we'll be able to turn that revenue loss into additional reserves.
Councilors, any councilors with questions?
I have a few questions.
Councilor Rodriguez?
Yes. So, I have a few questions, but I just received this document that I would like to read and go over. So, can you, I have a question, but I just received this document that I would like to go over.
Councilor Rodriguez, just as a point of information, I think maybe if we can ask this question to Director Ianello, I think the only change is the document. It's the same document that we had before, except instead of 103 million and 740,000 and change, it's 102,223,000. What Director Ianello explained is that $1 million has already been spent for the feasibility study, so that the original loan order for 103,740,000 is incorrect, and the document that he said he was going to pass I guess he's giving it to us early, is showing that it is a different amount. So I think that if we are going to end up, whatever we end up doing, I would suggest to council members to make an amendment from 103 to 102.
It should be it's 102 is my copy. Everything's 102.
Can you ask him if it's okay? Different is different.
Yeah, I think you're asking about the Cafo certification.
I mean, yes, I'm gonna go back. So we just received this Cafo certification. We have one before.
Right.
It is slightly different, and I would like to give you the opportunity to go over on the difference than what it was before. I see that on third paragraph, you mention in order to fund this large increasement in the city general fund.
Right.
And then you have a 50 million and 50 and a reset of 15 millions, which some of them, can you go over, please?
Yes, so the original Cafo certification was prepared December 15th, so that should be the original one, and that was 102 million. And this one is dated January 26th today, which is also 102 million, so the numbers are the same. The only change to this letter was that paragraph, as you just indicated, and I'll just read it since it's brief. In order to fund such a large, I'm talking about the large increase in debt service for the Leahy School. In order to fund a large increase due to the city's general fund operating budget, the city must be willing to increase the tax levy or use reserves to fund this project. So originally it was using tax levy. Now, because we know we have this ARPA funding to supplement our reserves, I'm suggesting that we can now use reserves to fund this project. The city has excess taxing capacity of 8.4 million. Again, I don't expect us to use that. And reserves, present reserves are 15 million before the ARPA use, of which some may be needed on an annual basis to fund the Leahy School project. And I just mentioned probably will only be for approximately 7 years for the Leahy. It's not going to be, if we borrow for, we can borrow up to 30 years for the Leahy School. We will only need to subsidize, if you will, the general fund budget, which has the debt service line item, for approximately 7 years. And then we have enough existing debt now that'll fall off our debt schedule or will mature. And in 2029 or 30, those years there will be able to, the Leahy School will just fill in that debt that is expiring. So it really is a unique opportunity for the city to fund 2 schools and not have a tax increase to the taxpayers.
So, there is 2 different things. One different thing on this CAFO certification that you sent to the city, which is your recommendation as a CAFO, right?
It's required. I'm required by statute to opine on any loan orders.
Yes.
And also the operating budget, the city's general fund operating budget, and so forth. So this is the required disclosure. It has to be noted in the vote that the Cafo certification was provided to counselors.
So essentially, it will be required by law, and you send one on December 15, and now another one on January 26. And the difference is basically including the free cash. It does not including the ARPA money.
That's correct.
The ARPA money is not yet allocated to be spent on a revenue lost situation, so we cannot yet count on the ARPA fund since we don't have it available until we pass it at the city council level, right?
Yes. So first we need a vote to expend the grant funds in accordance with the revenue loss provisions, and then in FY22 we'll expend those funds accordingly, and then that's how we'll free cash will be certified sometime in the early fall. Usually October we'll get our free cash certified, and that's when it'll actually turn into free cash at that point.
As a CAFO, you're recommending the city to look at other options based on your certification.
Yeah, and I might add, the reason for the Cafo certification is to let the council or the elected officials know, in my professional opinion, can the city absorb this debt without any detrimental impact on city services? And that's what the last paragraph of my statement says. As long as we are able to either use the excess tax capacity or use reserves, we can fund this debt without impacting general fund operating budget.
All right. So on November, during the election in November, we asked the voters to increase taxes to build that school. And essentially today, I haven't seen no difference on writing. I mean, the intention is to use the ARPA money, and you recommending to look at the reserve, which is $50 million at this point, which is great. So my question will be to the administration, what is the intention to fund the $40 million that the city will be responsible for? So do you have any answer on that?
So again, this is, my answer is in my Cafo certification. We're going to, the debt service on approximately 40 million is, and I put it in my memo, 2.3 to 3 million, depending on 2.3 million if you borrow for 30 years and 3 million if you borrow for 20 years. So depending on the loan term,
Yeah.
but the 40 million, our share of the 40 million will be paid by debt service. When we do our general operating budget, there's a debt service line item in our budget that the council approves, approximately 10 million per year. And that will go up by 2 million, so we'll have to fund 12 million. So when I present the budget in FY23, pardon me, in FY23, it won't include the Leahy School because the Leahy hasn't, it'll be another year away. But I will have in the FY23 budget, the debt service for the Oliver School and so forth. And I may be asking, depending on how our revenues are, we'll probably be asking the council to use a little bit of reserves to fund the general operating budget of the city in '23. We would continue to use that for the next 7 or 8 years, depending on any additional debt service that we issue and depending on the operating budget of the city, the operating revenues of the city. And, you know, as you know, our free cash fluctuates each year depending on our results of operations from the previous year. So this past year, we have, after the FY21 fiscal year ended on June 30th in October, our free cash was certified for 16.547 million. And the previous year was 18.8 million. So, you know, we've had healthy reserves, and we expect to continue to build up those reserves.
So I got you. I understand. Perfect. So my question would be, based on what you're saying, are we using the reserve to fund the Leahy School?
We will.
Or you recommending that we could use it? Because based on your CAFO report, you recommending that we can either use the tax capacity, which is $8.4 million, which you just mentioned is an option.
Not a good one,
Or
but it's an
another option is the reserve.
Use reserves.
So what are we going to use? Do we know that, or you just, I mean, is the administration going to follow?
It's the expectation of the mayor to use reserves. That's my recommendation, and that's what we will be doing. There is no talk about using the excess levy capacity.
No, I mean, nobody's thinking about that.
But it's obviously, and you know, my responsibility is what is the city's options, and that's the 2 options that the city has.
Mr. Chief, Chief of Staff, do you want to speak on behalf of the mayor about this?
Chief of Staff Bonet, if you can please state your name and address for the record.
Frank Bonet, 33 Dartmouth Street, Chief of Staff for Brian De Peña, Mayor. That's exactly what the mayor had intended. We met today with CAFO and those exact vision that he has for it. However, I think that we're talking about what we want to do, but we can't do it because the ARPA money is still tabled on your matter right there, right? However, there may be a parliamentary procedure that you may have to look at. I think I was talking to someone about it earlier, because the ARPA money came down with a specific expenditure of how they were going to spend it. You may have to we may have to resend it down, saying we want to now put it into you know, the budget as revenue losses and stuff like that. So, but that's exactly you have it right on the top. We want a Leahy School, right? We want 2 schools, a police station, no increases in taxes, no override in the 2.5. Everybody wins. Everybody wins. But you got to make that happen. The council is the only one that can make. The mayor can't make this happen. This is not going to be the mayor's victory. This is going to be the council's victory, right? So that's exactly what we're trying to do.
The thing is like, yes, we got it. We want those 3 things. We already voted for 2 of those. And because we have the capacity, we have the debt service capacity at some point, and we explained that, and there was an explanation done throughout, telling the council, look, for the Leahy School, this is what's going to do. I mean, for the Oliver School, this is what's going to happen until 2023 or 2025, I believe it was. you might have to fund this with either free cash or maybe increase taxes. It was explained that you might increase taxes for the Oliver. And also for the police station, you need to come up with $1 million. We come up with $1 million, and then now we have to come up with $9 million to be able to fund that project. So, are you guys planning on presenting that information as of how we're going to fund for the on writing, as of how we're going to fund the $40 million for the Leahy School?
Well, the Leahy School, as I just explained, will fund annually approximately $2 million in debt service using reserves. As I indicated with the Oliver School at the time, that was our plan to build the Oliver School without a tax increase, was use reserves. There wasn't, at the time the Leahy was discussed, there was no, we didn't have enough reserves to fund all of that. But now with this ARPA influence of ARPA funds, we definitely have more than enough to get us through that 7 or 8 year period where we will need to subsidize the general fund operating budget to pay for this debt service. So that's the difference between, several months ago and today. We now have the ability to fund all 3 of these projects without a debt override or a tax increase or anything else. We should be able to do it with our existing resources.
No, and I understand, and just want to make sure that's not lost on translation in terms of getting a documentation that is going to be on writing to the city council that is going to say exactly what we're discussing today. We have reserve, we have the ARPA money, and this is how we're going to, for the next, 5-7 years, this is how the debt service is going to be scheduled.
Right.
And essentially, we can see clearly that the intention is to fund the debt service with the reserve funds. Yep. So everybody is clear. I mean, as of last November, people voted against increasing taxes. If we have a plan that is not going to increase taxes, and we're going to be using the reserve with a schedule on writing, of course, we all want the project. Everybody want the project. I advocate for it, and I vote yes on the project. And since the beginning, we have this conversation, I told everybody, I'm going to personally vote yes. How the council is going to vote is something else, because I pursued what my boss has told me, which are the voters. Up till right now, voters tell me in November, we don't want the school if you increase taxes. That was the condition. Mm-hmm. If we have a project that is not increasing taxes, by all means, that's going to be the difference. So we wanted to see, or at least I want to see, how, obviously, with the reserve is the how. Mm-hmm. We're going to fund it with the reserve, but how it's going to look like on the schedule of the debt service.
So I'll try and put together a memo which projects that. Again, the memo to explain the ARPA revenue loss, which you asked me for tonight, and I'll add in there, again, here's the revenue loss, here's how we can use that revenue loss, and this is how we expect it will be used for the Leahy School with a projection of the debt service that we have. And I'll see if I can lay that out in a memo that's understandable.
Perfect. And just keep in mind, you send us a clear statement, as a certification as of how this should be funded. So that recommendation that is going to be sent to us have to come from the mayor, because he's the only one that can sign and say, this is how it's going to be. In the meantime, you recommend that, perfect, awesome. Yeah. But he have to come from the administration, sign.
We'll have the mayor sign the,
yeah.
I'll put the memo together
sure.
and have the mayor add some comments, but make sure it comes from the mayor so you know that this is my recommendations, but it's the mayor, with the mayor's approval.
Yeah, of course. And then eventually we'll have something in writing, we can move forward.
Okay, yep.
Thank you so much.
Councilor Levy, do you have any questions?
No,
No,
okay. Well, just only for clarification, so whatever that, through you, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
It's just for clarification, but while I was hearing Councilor Rodriguez talking about what we voted on November the 2nd regarding the 2.5, So for me, we never vote for no increase of the tax. What we vote was to not to increase the tax over the limits that it was 2.5. I'm clear or no?
Director Ianello, I believe Councilor Levy is asking you a question. I believe, if I'm phrasing the question correctly, Councilor Levy, if I'm not, let me know. She's asking if in November, if what we voted on was to increase the taxes over 2.5. Actually, Councilor Levy, can you phrase the question again?
Okay. So in November, we vote not to increase the taxes over the 2.5.
Well,
I know that we did a projection that we're going to have some tax increase during the next 5 years. But at this time, what we were doing, we were voting is that not to increase over the 2.5 that is allowed right now for the law.
yeah, I think the council didn't vote on the tax increase. The council voted to allow a ballot question to the voters to proceed, and then the voters voted that down. So the council didn't take any vote. The voters said they didn't want the tax increase. So that's what we're trying to accomplish tonight, or explain tonight, and accomplish in a memorandum soon, using this ARPA, this influx of ARPA funding of approximately $57 million. That's going to substantially add to our reserves, which will enable us to pay that debt service for those 7 years, or maybe even 8 years for the Leahy School, until our debt service falls off and pays for the entire Leahy School as well. But there is no anticipation of a tax increase required to fund the Oliver, the police station, or the Leahy School.
I believe what Councilor Levy was stating is just that, and the vote that was taken was a vote that potentially would have seen a tax increase over 2.5. I think what Councilor Levy's trying to say is that that in her opinion, the voters, it wasn't that they voted to not fund the school, that they voted to not fund the school over the 2.5 limit. Is that what you were trying to state, Councilor Levy?
Yes, so that is what we voted, not to increase tax over the 2.5.
Mr. Chair, it's important that we say that again, because Councilor Levy is absolutely correct. There have been some messages out to the community that people believe because they voted no on the Leahy School during the election, that means that they have not given this city permission to build a Leahy, and that's not true at all whatsoever. The vote that occurred last November was for the 2.5 override. We don't need permission to build a school. You guys do that.
Sorry, so we didn't vote for the 2.5 override. We voted for. Councilor Rodriguez, if you can speak to the mic.
No, what Councilor Levis is asking is that what we asked the voter to vote yes or no, it was to increase taxes to build the Leahy School with an increasement of taxes that is going to be above 2.5%.
Well, it was just to clarify. It wasn't it's the taxpayers approving the ability of the city to increase their taxes to pay for the Leahy School. Didn't mean we had to increase their taxes. If we received revenue of a couple $1 million that we didn't expect, we wouldn't have increased taxes in one of those out years. But the ballot question was to allow us to tax them above the Prop 2.5 limitations, if necessary, to pay for the debt on the Leahy School. And if we found revenues that had exceeded our expectations, or some new revenues, we would not have increased those taxes. However, at the time, last fall, when or even the summer, when the city was considering another school, I had to indicate to the mayor that it would be impossible to fund 2 schools under Proposition 2.5. The city wouldn't be able to balance its budget. So that's why the Mass general laws allow a tax override or debt override for building schools such as this. And that was my recommendation to the city back then. Put it to the voters and see if they'll allow us to go above Prop 2.5, because we're going to be required to do that to balance our budget. Now with this new information, and that's what I'm suggesting, we will have enough reserves to get us through these 7 or 8 year period without a tax increase. There may still be a normal Prop 2.5 tax increase in the next 7 or 8 years, but it won't be anything above the 2.5% required to fund the school.
Council President, I believe, wanted to speak on this issue.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. I do appreciate the opportunity to speak. As you know, I have a hard time having a chance to take the microphone during a full city council meeting, so I try to relieve myself of the opportunity to speak during the committee meetings. I do appreciate the opportunity. So number one, it bears repeating, because what we heard tonight was amazing news. What we heard tonight was amazing news, and we just need to, the headline should not be dealt underneath that. To have that ability for us to have $57 million is an amazing opportunity for this city. So I say that with a loud resonance in my voice, because that's the kind of enthusiasm we should have regarding this news. Because what that does is provides this city opportunities. And so now the question is, how do we take advantage of those opportunities? And so one option here that people have spoken on Zoom and people have spoken to the audience, one of those opportunities is about the Leahy School, and that's a big nut. It's a big nut, and we have already talked about the fact that we had a vote last November on this, right? So we already have that out there, but I think we've discussed, and we're going to discuss that a little bit more. But what I really want to drill on are two other points. Number one, not one person yet has spoken about how we got to this situation today. Not one. We know what the need is. We know what we need to do to fix that need, but how do we get there, and how do we not repeat that? So I'm going to stand on my soapbox again. I've been doing it for years. These poor people have had to listen to me, Counselor, as well as you, right? The issue here is about non-smart growth in our city. 10 years ago, we had, 76,000 people? 2010 census, 2020 census, 89,000 people. Where are we putting the people? What are we doing about the growth? When we add more people, we need more schools. So we're not going to stop building more schools until we figure out what we're doing about the growth. We have more cars on the road. I've got stats, right? I got stats that'll make your eyes water. If I can pull them up, which I probably can't now. But what I can tell you is this. The number of cars have more than doubled in 10 years. We've gotten a lot more units that have come on board, thousands of more units. And with that comes the responsibility. What I would like to see, if we're going to go forward with this, is for all of us as city leaders to really think about what we're doing about growth. To work with the administration, to work with the zoning board, work with the planning board, talk to developers, and find out what can we do. We can't do it unilaterally as a councilor. We can't. There's pockets of growth. We have onesies and twosies that are going on in small parcels called infield housing throughout the city. We got mill developments that are going on throughout the city. Most of those are spoken for, but not all of them. And what are we doing about them? We need to make sure that the partners at the table, frankly, are the schools. I'm pointing to our good friend here, the schools. They need to be at the table when we start talking about what are we doing about growth. Somebody from the schools need to say, well, if you're going to allow for zoning for these places, that's going to have 300 more students, and where are those kids going to go to school? We need to have them at the table. We need to have zoning at the table and planning and all of that. I harp on that because it needs to be harped on. We needs to be spoken, and we need to realize This is a popular phrase called, what's it, the root causes. The root cause of this problem is growth, and we're not smart about it. We have dynamics to share, not only Lawrence, but surrounding communities. Last point. The last time we had a capital, let me shut this down, don't need that. Last time we had that I have a copy of, the capital improvement plan. Do you have anything more recent than this?
That's the last one.
That's the last one, all right. So this last one is for FY21, it's for FY25. And if you go through this thing, it projects, right? It projects what we're doing. So one of the things, if you look at FY23 in this capital improvement plan, it talks about a lot of different ways that we need to deal with schools. I'm going to quickly catalog some money. So we have roof repairs at the school, $300,000. We have boiler repairs at the school, $300,000. Windows at the school, $150,000. Electrical upgrades at the school, $100,000. HVAC at the school, $150,000. ADA compliance at the school, $100,000. If you do the math, and there's probably a couple more that I can't read my handwriting, bathrooms and plumbing at the school is $100,000. We're looking at about $1.2 million for improvements. We should never have gotten to where the Leahy got. If those before us, those who sat in these chairs before us and other places before us did their jobs, we wouldn't be in this position today trying to play catch up, because that's what we're doing right now. So my point here is, when we have this capital improvement budget, if we're going to be being smart about where we're putting the money, I don't want to have to go to MSBA, X number, or whoever's going to be sitting in my seat, or that seat that I'm occupying right now, years from now, and say we need a new school because we didn't keep up with the maintenance on that. Now we've got water coming, this coming, that coming. We got to keep up. We got to keep up with the school's maintenance. And we have a plan here that was supposed to do that, and now we're fortunate. Now we've got some monies, and now we should start thinking about that, because it's going to cost us $1.2 million now, but if we don't pay the $1.2 million, to have, what is it, we're paying, what, $40 million or change right now for the new Leahy School? So, and with 80% and all of that stuff. I'd rather spend the $1.2 million than the $40 million, is my point. And I think all of us would agree with that. Those are my points, counselors. Thank you so much for letting me have a chance to speak tonight. I do appreciate that. And I'm going to support, and I endorse this thing to go up to the full council with favorable recommendation. Let's have this discussion at the full council. Let's talk about how we proceed. Let's talk about ARPA. Let's talk about how we get to that point. Thank you.
Thank you, Council President, and thank you for bringing that up. I know that that's something that you're talking about new growth and ensuring that the city is prepared for it. It's something I've talked about for a while. 5 years ago, I remember as a school committee member, I was up in front of the full council, and one of the things that I was talking about was how the city wasn't investing in its schools, and particularly with the growth that was occurring in our area. And when I was my last year as a school committee member, what I presented to the council was that in the years that I was a school committee member, the city owed over $20 million in Chapter 70 money. That's just Chapter 70 money alone. That's over $20 million. That's for the 7 years that I was on. I didn't count the years before that, right? If I went back, all the way back to where I was in high school, I'm sure we probably would have paid for 3 schools over and over again. And that's also not counting for the money that should have been invested, us as property owners, we should have been investing in the schools. We were absentee landlords for a very long time, and that's embarrassing, and that was unfair for our youth. And I say for our youth because I was one of those youth. I'm no longer one of those youths, but I was one of those youths that I was in a school that over half the kids dropped out, and in part, it was because the city wasn't doing its part to invest in its education. I think that what we have before us is that question. Councilors, do you have any other question, or is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Councilor Levy, so is this a motion that sends us to the full council with a favorable recommendation?
Yes.
Second.
Second by Councilor De Rosario.
Councilor Levy, if I may.
You're asking me? Go ahead, Councilor Rodriguez.
Councilor Levy, will you take a friendly amendment that to have it pending documentation as of how we're going to be funding this project.
I couldn't hear the last part. Can you repeat it, please? Pending?
A friendly amendment that state pending documentation from the administration as of how we're going to be funding the project.
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
Did you get that change? All right, perfect. So there's a motion on the table by Councilor Levy. It's been seconded by Councilor De Rosario. We now move for a roll call vote. Councilor Rodriguez?
Yes.
Councilor Levy?
Yes.
Councilor De Rosario?
Yes.
And the chair votes in affirmative. All right, great.
Thank you so much, councilors.
Thank you, and I'll say a quick thanks to Councilor School Committee Woman Mariano, School Committee Member Roa, and School Committee Member Tracy Soto, who were all three of them were here today, and also I think we had an LAE board member here. Maybe not. All right, so thank you, everybody. Now we move on to.
So if I may, I just want to make sure the vote was recorded correctly. We're voting for sending this on to the full council for a favorable recommendation to request a loan order.
Councilor Levy, was that your motion? So was your motion to send this to the full council with a favorable recommendation to request a loan order for, and to order a public hearing pending documentation?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. We now move on.
The documentation as of how we're going to fund the project.
Yeah, no, she got that written down. We now move on to item 2022, FY22 adjustment budget request, Director Ianello.
Actually, I think that's a typo. I was just copied on the memo. This is from the mayor. So
All right.
Frank's here to answer.
Chief of Staff Bonet.
Maria. Good evening again, once again. Sent a memo down to council early January 11, early January, to ask for an adjustment of our FY22 budget from Mayor Brian DePena to the City Council, CC, Mark Ianello, and myself. And so in it, I come prepared to talk about it. If you want me to read the memo so that way people at home know what we're talking about, but I also have some adjustments again or corrections to that, and some communications for you, because I'm pretty sure you have a lot of questions. I do have the memo. Should I read it? Okay, so the memo says, please find the summary below along with a couple of charts adjusting the FY22 budget for my office, and this comes from the mayor, not from me. Cafo Certification will instruct the council on the availability of funds to be transferred. In the purchases of service budget, I've added 150 for professional services, which is contract consultant services that he wished to have, as I will obtain the consultants for a few projects. Additionally, $5,000 and $15,000 for in and out of state travel, associated duties as mayors, COVID-19 related meetings or conferences, and that of my staff. I have increased mailings in order to obtain color printed material from outside vendors, and I have increased the office supplies due to the depleted office supply of my entire office's encounter once we took office. It says CAFO will discuss with you, but I'm here to do that. In the personnel services, I've made a few temporary changes, and this temporary changes that will be reflected in the new year FY23 budget once submitted. He says, I will increase the special assistance from $47,750, which is not correct. It's $43,750. That's the correct number, not 47. So instead of $47,750, it's really $43,750. to $65,000. I've included an executive assistant and a constituent services director. And additionally, for the rest of FY '22, I've included 3 interns as well. I will ask the personnel department, upon submission of the new budget in late May, June, to forward you several reclassified job descriptions, or classified in that mode, of my office positions that will administratively exempt individuals from the overtime requirement. That's the Federal Labor Standards Act. However, the above salary increases, along with supervisor and administrative responsibility, is intended to do just that to the executive assistants and constituent services, as well as the others. I look forward to having this document before you, as well as the Budget and Finance Committee. So, if you want, yeah.
Councilor Rodriguez?
You need a copy of the memo? Oh, you have a copy? Yeah. Yeah, I think we sent that all to the city council, but you can make copies. Yeah. What I've given you, what I passed out, and I gave one for Councilor Levy to Maria Halloran, is our year-to-date budget. And so as you see from our year-to-date budget, I highlighted the yellow portion, and that is the remaining revenue that the Office of the Mayor's budget has actually, right? And so, and that's as of today. This memo was done as of January. We had done one in January. They had just probably a little bit more money. But let me just go down and talk to you about what it is that he wants to do. I'm pretty sure did you get the 2 pages that had changes that he was requesting?
Yeah, so I will let you know, Director Bonet, what we have. So we have a memo dated January 11th. Yep. We have 2 pages showing budget requests, right. And that's what for us today.
And so so the 2 pages. I'm going to start with the mayor's office staff. Those are the titles and the positions. I also have the general budget before you, just so that we can go through really quickly and explain. So the first one is that for quite some time, every mayor's office has had staff, and they've been called different names, right? Back in 2005, when we sent the classification structure, the Bennett and Associate classification structure, they were sent down, job descriptions were sent down with specific titles for positions. Something along the way happened that the attorney then did not send the ordinances down to council, and later on we found out that none of those changes were ordinance. So in essence, those positions continue to be called administrative aides. They call them administrative aides. But historically, every mayor has given them a special title, whether it's constituent services, such as the previous administration had one, whether it's communications manager, as the previous administration had one, whether it's special assistant to the mayor, whatever the case is. They all get paid the same thing, and on the budget, it looks like administrative aid. And so, and I say this just because as I'm going to go along, I want to explain, but every one of those administrative aid gets paid $43,750. That's it. That's the only salary that they've been getting, and that's what it is in the budget for this year, right? I think in previous years, there were some that were at 45. There was a confidential secretary that Mayor Sullivan had, and so did Mayor Rivera. They were at 55. There used to be an executive director of business development in Mayor Sullivan's office that were at 75. So there have been different salaries along the line. But for this year, they're at $43,750, right? That equals out to about $841. What happens is with these positions is they're not exempt from the overtime requirements of the Fair Labor Standards Act, right? So if they work past 40 hours in 1 week, not the biweekly pay period, because you have to calculate overtime on a weekly basis, you have to pay them overtime or comp time. Under the Fair Labor Standards Act, if you're not exempt, they can choose what they wish to get paid as. If they want the money with overtime at time and a half, or if they want the straight time, comp time. Well, we don't have an overtime budget. We don't. It's never been put into the mayor's budget here, right? Other unions may have it on the collective bargaining agreement. They may include it into the salary budget, but that's other departments. And so we have to pay these individuals with comp time. And once you get to a certain amount of comp time that they've accumulated, you know, they have to take their comp time. They don't get paid out at the end of the year. They don't get paid out when they leave. They use it or lose it. And so what we wish to do is, and as you're talking, you know, the personnel director has been here for 20-something years before the chief of staff, is we wish to reclassify these positions, administrative exemptions under the Fair Labor Standards Act. In order to do that, we want to pay them appropriately for the amount of hours that they would be spending in the office. At any point, at any time, we're here till 6, 7 o'clock at night. On Saturdays, we have designated individual who's an administrative aide to the mayor. We call him the communications director for the city, just recently hired. And he's recording, he's photographing. He's a communications director for the whole entire city, not just for the mayor, but for the council, for every department. So he's all over the place. We're paying him with comp time. So the communications director, which is an administrative aide, we wish to increase that to give us $65,000. The front office staff, which is Luciani Rondon, we transferred her from the personnel department. She now works in the front desk. She knows everybody in the city. She knows every department. She knows what every department does and what every position does. We wish to also increase that to $65,000 a year. So prorated comes out to about a little over $20,000 from January to June. It's probably a little less now because we're almost in the beginning of February, so the prorated now is going to be like 5 months. We have the Director of Constituent Services, which you probably know from previous state representative, or actually same representative Devers, but he was the previous communications for constituent services for him. He's working as that. We also like to increase that to 75, as well as the executive assistant, which is an administrative. Yeah, 75 is different, not 65. So 2 at 65, 2 at 75. The executive assistant, which is indicated as administrative aide to the mayor, is there. And so we recently also hired a high school intern at $15 an hour. He works 3 to 4 hours after school. We have about $2,400 in our salary line item that could pay for that. And we wish to keep him until the end of the year. And so we're asking for that. We're also asking to fund 3 interns, and you have to forgive me because, you know, most people think that I am asking to pay an intern $40,000, and that's not what I intend to do. If you look at the last column where it says change, in parentheses is 20, that is prorated. We're not going to pay $20,000 from February to June. I'm pretty sure it'll probably be half of that. But if you calculate $15 an hour on a 35-hour work week, it equals out to about $10 an hour. We're not going to pay $10 an hour, and someone's not going to work 40 hours a week, right? So we're talking about hiring graduate-level interns, possibly from Merrimack College, to do project management and program management, not to answer phones, not to do filings, not to take care of customers, but actually be graduate-level students doing a project or program in the city of Lawrence. And so we like to pay them appropriately. It probably won't be $20,000, and they won't be working 40 hours a week because they do have classes. Except we don't know, we don't have any names, we don't have any students. We're going to be recruiting. We don't know if that student has 2 classes a week, 3 classes a week, 4 or 5, right? I know you could do 5, I did 5, but it's hard. But let's say you do have 2 classes a week or 3 classes a week, then you could be available to work 2 days at 8 hours, that's 16 hours a week. We could have somebody, you know, working 16 hours a week that's a graduate level intern, it'd be great. I don't know what that salary is gonna be. Whatever we don't use, at the end of the year is gonna go back to free cash. We're not gonna pocket this. This is not gonna be transferred to somebody else or anything like that. If we can hire more than the 2 interns, if we can hire 4 interns, that's great, you know? If you want to collectively take all that money, which is we're asking for like 60, and say just interns, and we can hire 10 interns. It all depends how many hours they can work and what's our obligation under the ordinances in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts law of how much we could pay, right? We don't want to pay $10 an hour because that's not even minimum wage here in Massachusetts. We want to pay at least 15 and above. So we're asking for that. We talked about the Fair Labor Standards Act, exempt, non-exempt. Just want to briefly talk to you about that real quick. Most people think that it's a union or non-union. Every position except non-unions earn either overtime or comp time. And it's written into the collective bargaining agreement. And so the non-unions fall under the Fair Labor Standards Act unless you're exempt, and there are exemptions. There are executive exemptions, there's administrative exemptions, they're like 4 different types of exemptions. If you go to the federal website, it explains these exemptions. And so we believe that every one of those executive assistants, those administrative aid to the mayors, that's how they read it in the budget right now, once we reclassify those positions, increase the amount of essential functions that we want to do, because we just don't want them to look at customers coming in. They will literally have an authority and a jurisdiction to do certain things that the mayor is going to assign them to do. And so we want to exempt them based on the amount of work they're going to do and the salary that they're going to be paid. And so for the most part, exempt employees are governed by the Fair Labor Standards Act, and some jobs are classified by exemptions as definitions like outside sales, inside sales for the most part are non-exempt. However, it runs on how much they get paid, what kind of work they do, and how many people they supervise, right? And there is a formula that you can run through on the Fair Labor Standards Act that tells you, and you can assign and reclassify, and that would be the job of the Personnel Committee, and to reclassify those positions, and then the Ordinance Committee to update the ordinance on those positions. And that's what we plan to do before the budget comes down. Hopefully, matching or piggyback riding on the UMass Collins classification compensation work that they're currently doing, right? So with a few exceptions, to be an exempt employee, you must be paid at least $23,600 per year, which is $455 a week, and that's low, and be paid on a salary basis, and also perform the job's duties of an exempt. And these requirements are outlined under the Fair Labor Standards Act. The exemption for the administrative job duties is as such. The most elusive and imprecise of the definitions for the job duties is for exempt administrative duties, office or non-manual work, which is directly related to management or general business operations of the employer or the employer's customer, and a primary component of which involves the exercise of independent judgment and discretions about matters of significance. And so they would qualify under the mayor, and we would like to reclassify those so that way you work 5 hours or you work 100 hours a week, you get paid the same thing. It's a salary position. Right now, they get paid by the hour. If they don't come in for 10 hours, they don't get paid for 10 hours. If they work over the amount of 40 hours a week, we have to annotate on the timesheet the amount of comp time that they've worked. And then when they want to take those comp times, they have to annotate on the timesheets, I want to take my comp time. I prefer they take their comp time before the next pay period and get it out the way instead of accumulating hundreds of hours. At this moment in the city of Lawrence, I'm pretty sure we have, I'm going to say about 4 people that have thousands of hours of comp time on top of their vacation, on top of the sick. And so all that accumulation for them would require them to be out more than half a year before they use the whole entire thing. I don't want to get to that point with these individuals. They're very professional. They know what they're doing. And so that's what we wish to do. That is for the, and you could change this. This is just a recommendation. I just put a round number. I didn't calculate hours. I didn't calculate salaries. If it's not what you think it should be paid, you can change that. I'm just saying we should put it there, and whatever it doesn't use at the end of the year goes right back to free cash. It's not going to anybody's pocket, you know? And then page 2 is the mayor's office adjustment for services. You see from the budget, a lot of our line items are either depleted or almost about to that position. The first line item is professional services. So we have the Harvard School of Government doing an assessment of the Office of Planning and Development. As you heard Council President Mark LaPlante speak about how do we balance, housing with schools. Well, we would like to equal out that department between housing, affordable housing, and businesses. The business portion of that department has not been populated at all. I think the last one we had there was Abel Vargas for a little while, and then Esther Encarnacion, but they had an administrator. The whole division or the whole department, because it was ordinance as a department, I consider it a division, was never really populated, and it was never let go to do what it needed to do, which is expand business, create business, get taxable businesses in the city of Lawrence, so that way we can have money to add to those school constructions, right? We've been concentrating on housing for a long time, and just like the council president says, populating the city to the point where our schools are really, really tight with students. And so we have Harvard School of Business that's coming in, is doing this assessment. They have been doing surveys throughout the community, and so we like to pay from that line item. We've already been getting invoices. We are also getting a consultant to do a community neighborhood group initiative, and so we would like to pay for that as well. Do we think it's going to be $150,000? We don't know. If it's more, we come down. If it's not, it goes right back into free cash. The next line is in-state travel. The mayor traveled to Worcester at a governor invite about 3 weeks ago. He also traveled to Boston yesterday for the governor's State of the State. Was it yesterday? State of the State was yesterday, yeah. And there's no in-state travel in the budget. It's absolutely zero budgeted, right? And so he's asking that when he travels to Boston or he has to pay for the parking, that he be at least reimbursed for the parking and whatever the mileage is on the federal government. I think they went up to 58. Now, he's not asking to be reimbursed for any gas allowances while he travels in his personal vehicles in the city of Lawrence. That's not what he's asking. It's coming out of his pocket. His travel here in the city of Lawrence, from wherever he's got to go, he's paying for himself. He's just saying, if I have to go to Boston, I got to go to Worcester for a mayor's convention, I got to go out of state for whatever it is, I'd like to have the city reimburse me or pay for it up front. He wants to be transparent. He wants to add it into the budget. He wants to use it if he has to. He wants the people to see what he's expending. And he wants the council to know that there is a report every month that they can ask, or every day if you want to, that says, where are you using that money? Previous administrations have not been doing that. Previous administrations have been writing a lease vehicle and using city department of Public Works gas fuel, right? And so you don't see that in the mayor's budget. You don't. So you can't calculate. It's not transparent to the people. It's not transparent to you that I have a lease that I'm charging the Department of Public Works and I'm using it in the mayor's office, a different department, and I go on a weekly basis and I fuel this vehicle up for whatever purposes it is. You're not seeing that expenditure. That's not transparency at all. He wants to be transparent, right? He's not going to get the lease. He's not going to go fuel up in DPW. He's not going to charge you for gasoline while he's driving. But if he goes out of state for a particular invite from the governor or from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts or for, the congressperson or the senator, he has to go down to D.C., he would like to have in-state and out-of-state travel opportunities for him to get reimbursed for whatever, train tickets, Ubers or taxis, whatever they use. If he doesn't use it, then there's no particular plan right now. There's no schedule. There's nothing in the books that says he's going somewhere or his staff is. But if they were, he would like to have it there. And at the end of the year, whatever's not used, right back to free cash. Printing and mailing. So we only have $66 available in the budget that was expended by the previous administration in less than 5 months of the budget. So either they spent too much or they didn't budget enough, right? And I'm gonna say they didn't budget enough. The mayor and his staff had to pay for the business cards that we just ordered from a different line item because there was not enough money to pay for the printing and mailing line item. So he would like to have money available, and I think he put $4,500 to do printing from service companies in the Merrimack Valley or Lawrence that do print flyers and informational type things for the events, so he can have it available. Are we going to use it? Do we have a plan right now? We don't know, but we just had Harvard School of Government do a survey, and we had to sit there, well, not me, but the staff had to sit there on a copier and run 1,000 surveys, three pages each on the copier, which adds money or adds expenses to the IT's budget, right? You don't see that because IT is paying for it. You can't relate it to the mayor's office. But if we had printing service or we have money, we go to a printing service and have that done. And so he wishes to have that. Office supplies, right now the mayor's paying out of his pocket for office supplies. He's bought pens, bought water, coffee, cream, sugar, and these are things that when dignitaries come to the mayor's office, just like if I go to your house or you come to my house, I'd like to offer you a cup of water or a cup of coffee if we're going to have a discussion. And we like to give the same respect to people coming to the mayor's office. We're not talking about elaborate lunches and, all kinds of sweets and cakes. We're talking about coffee and water. We're talking about pens. I don't have a stapler on my desk right now because we don't have a sufficient amount of money to purchase the supplies that we need. The money that's on that line item, which I believe it's $339, is sufficient to buy the next few reams or boxes of reams of paper for the copier. That's how far as it goes. We can't get paper clips, no rubber bands, I got no sticky pads. My staff has gone to other departments and begged, or not begged, but asked, and they've been very nice and afforded them, just a 1 week's, here's a couple of sticky pads, some pens, and some staplers so you can put it to your stapler. I don't have any of that, but they do for the meantime, and we wish to have some monies to buy those supplies. Right now, the mayor just sent for a box of pens. He signs with blue ink only. I sign in black ink. A lot of people sign in black ink, right? Most government officials sign in black ink because that's their normal. But he likes blue ink, so we had to go out. He had to pay for a box. I think he sent Claudia, which is assistant, to Staples and get a box of blue pens because we had, the money that is theirs for the paper. Other purchase of services, so as you see from the purchase of service of the previous administration, they had a vaccine block party. That ate through 75% of the budget fund. We were supposed to pay the business cards from that line item. So in the near future, we only have $5.03 to use. It probably go into free cash at the end of the year because I don't think there's anything that we could buy with $5 through other purchases. Maybe some water, but the waters are jugs. We're not talking about bottled water. We're talking about Poland Springs bringing in, water for your bubbler. And so the last but not least is an allowance, and I talked to him about it. He said instead of using fuel from DPW, which he has not done and would not do, he'd like the city to offset his expenses if he's running his personal vehicles associated with any wear and tear damage. So the mayor wishes me to tell you that he wishes to be transparent. This is something the prior administration didn't do well, right? They used other departments' budgets, other departments' money to do certain things that they wanted to do in their offices. He does not wish to hide expenses through the other city departments, in which you, the council, and the residents should be able to see every time you ask the finance director for a year-to-date budget. The prior administration had leased vehicles through DPW budget. It wasn't reflected in the mayor's budget. And neither was the fuel used that was used for that. The mayor, as you know, Mayor DePena, as his first week of office, took that leased vehicle and thought it could be better used by just giving it to another department, and he gave it to the department, the Lawrence Police Department. And finally, just to say, I said it again and again, most people think and would like to wish that this request that we're doing, it's not going to be pocketed. If I say it's not going to be pocketed, they'll make some funny joke, and be sarcastic. It's not going to be pocketed. Whatever is not used at the end of the year goes to free cash. That we can't move it without appropriations or permissions from you and the CAFO knowing about it. Like, once it's in the line item, we can't transfer it unless it's within the same org, right? So that's what he wished to say. He's heard a lot of things. They thought it was unfair, and he wishes to be transparent with he wishes to be transparent all the way around through city government, but more specifically on this budget request with his office. He wants the people to know what we're spending the money for, how do we get around the city, right? And who pays for it and why, and let them question the expenditures as they happen. And so with that, I'll leave it open to some more, any questions you may have.
Before I open up for councilors to ask questions, I know the council president had a statement, and I'd like to take, Council President, if you can come up, and I don't know if it was a question or statement that you had.
I didn't even know you were still here.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the courtesy, Mr. Chairman. I do appreciate it. I will be briefer than my earlier comments, I can assure you. The first one is the deal with the internships, and that I am glad that there was some clarification made by the Chief Bonet on that. What I would now ask for, and I would encourage you to ask for, is that the sheet of paper that we have should reflect the comments that Chief Bonet has. And so if we're talking, because right now I'm looking at this thing and I'm thinking that's a pretty doggone sweet salary of $20,000 or $40,000 to be an intern in the city. That's better than a lot of people get paid for a regular salary, never mind that. But I understand the dynamics here, and I think what they need to do, and I think what we should try to do, is provide for the mayor's office the tools to do the job that they need to do on behalf of the people of the city of Lawrence. And so if I would encourage the mayor's office to resubmit something that truly reflects what it is the intent. This document right here, it makes it a lot more challenging for me to support when it's written like this, but if the clarifications take place, it becomes a little bit easier. On a corollary note, we're doing a lot here to help the mayor's office. There's going to be a time that the city council is going to be looking for some help. If we go forward with helping the mayor's office, another chamber, another body of government here is going to have some needs. And I'm hopeful that if this body is helpful in providing for the tools, that we're going to need some tools as well. Something to consider as we go forward. I also like the fact that we're talking about transparency. I think that's good. I think that's honest. I think that's good, and we should encourage that. I guess the question I would have on the litany of different things that the chief has brought to our attention is, how does our city compare to other cities who also, rather than have a state vehicle or whatever city vehicle, excuse me, what other communities do that, and do they have the same suite of options? We've talked about a lot of different things here, and the good news is, and I have to applaud this, is that you're really you're sticking your neck out. You're saying this is how much it costs, this is what we need, and we're going to have a discussion. So good for the administration for doing that. The follow-up question is, how does that compare to other model communities who do the same thing? Do they have every particular line item that you talk about here? Does it match? How does it compare? I think that's my point. Just one last thing is I just want to make sure that we're all in this together. We're all trying to get the job done, and I'm glad that we're heading in the right direction, I think, and I want to applaud that. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Council President. Director Bonet, some quick questions.
Sure. I just before, I could be more specific on the student interns if I sit down and determine how many hours max the mayor wishes to have a graduate level Merrimack College intern in the office, right? I can maybe get it down to 16, max 23. That's 3 days. 16 would be 2 days. And adjust the forms and then resend it down so that way you can have a better idea of what we're looking for.
So Director Bonet, I can't speak for anyone else. So what I'd be interested in, and I know that you've answered a lot of the questions that I've had, with some of these funds. I think it would be great to have these explanations written down, because I believe if this were to go up to the full council, I am sure that other council members will have similar questions to myself. I think that, across the board in the entire city, we're dealing with antiquated systems. We just had some changes done in the last, during COVID, that have made this chamber be more tech-friendly. But that being said, I know that there are a lot of individuals across the city that are doing more work than what they're getting paid for. I understand that right now your office is coming in, and it's in need of funds because the funds weren't there when you got there. I think it's important for all that to be just, have all that on paper, so that way, any other counselors before the meeting are able to understand that, and maybe there'll be less questions in the full council. Councilors, do any of you have questions? Councilor Rodriguez?
Thank you for the opportunity to speak on this matter. Chief of Staff.
Yes.
It's difficult to call the Chief of Staff of all this. Bonnet, how you doing?
You can call me Bonnet.
Yeah. Well, essentially, I actually was trying to get an understanding of this memo. And I wanted to go through a couple of things.
Sure.
And that way I better understand.
Sure.
Based on what you provide to us, the explanation you give us today is different than what is on paper in front of us.
Well, the paper is just brief, here's what we want, right?
Yeah.
No reasons, no reasons.
Essentially, yes.
Right.
And based on the analysis I did, I actually have a post on social media as of what I explained, what I understood from the memo.
I haven't seen it.
No, that's fine. And from the actual budget. What we have in front of us is a budget that have actually a typo. It should be 10 positions total, if you count it up. And the previous amount of positions that is for the mayor's office.
Yeah, so I was trying to do the same thing that the budget has, and it's like what it used to be, what they want it to be. So
yeah,
it could be confusing because some of these titles are not in the budget, right?
Exactly.
Or they say special assistant and really administrative aid to the mayor.
But we agree that based on the budget we have in front of us, there is 10 positions that are going to be at the mayor's office. Not based on your explanation. Your explanation is going to be reflecting on another document. And the all amount of positions that we have, that the city have at the mayor's office, it was only 5, correct?
Right, the interns are not full. I put 2, but it's really the full-time, the FTE would be more like 0.3, maybe 0.5. Right, so it's not 10. If you take those 3 interns, 1.5, it will be looking like 7. Yeah, 6.5. Yeah, 7? 7.
So the intern will count for what? Based on what you have here, you have a $40,000 for the head of the intern. That's one, right?
No, look at the parentheses. It's prorated at 20.
And then until June, you're going to have...
To June, 20,000
to June is going to be
Actually,
20,000.
And I'm going to correct it because it's probably lower now, right? This memo was done in January, the beginning of January, so we could scratch off January. Now it's just February, March, April, May, June, 5 months. So that's going to go down.
Yeah, essentially it's until
16,
June.
maybe 15, right?
And then you have 2 more interns until June, which is another 40,000.
Right.
But you just mentioned on your statement that it's not going to be 2 interns or 3 interns. It's going to be an amount of money that is going to be split based on the needs of the interns, and you're going to pay a specific rate.
Right. So let me explain. It says 3 interns, and I just put a round number in it. But if you would like, I can make one line item that says just interns, and here's the amount of money, and then we can hire whatever amount of interns we can for that amount of money, right? So if we, let's say we take a round number, $30,000. Can we hire 7 interns with $1,000? Well, yeah, but I'm not gonna tell you 7, which would be, part-time. I'm just gonna put interns. And whatever amount of money we could pay, we'll use up, or I can give you a specific number of interns based on the programs that the mayor wants to do, and I will calculate down to the penny how much I think we should pay until the end of the year. You tell me what you want, I'll do it.
No, I mean, it's how it's supposed to be done. If it is interns and you guys are planning on hiring more than whatever amount,
Yeah.
it's an amount that's called intern. That's the right way to do it, right?
Probably just with an hourly rate.
Yeah. To tell you the truth, I don't know what the hourly rate is for interns. College graduate interns, I know that high school interns, we pay 15. Yeah,
I encourage you to go to that
I probably will, yeah.
Mass DOT website. They have a great program for interns, and they pay a specific amount of money.
I'll do that.
And they have those posting available today.
Yeah.
Because they hire interns a whole year round. So agree upon that. Do you believe that every position should be ordinance?
I think that, I included that in the memo, that we plan to have the personnel director come down before you to reclassify these positions, right? So if they're administrative aid and we wish to change the title and make them exempt from the overtime, we are going to do that. Exactly. So what we're doing here is taking 2 assistant positions or 2 administrative aid to the mayor position, and we would like to change the title. We could call them administrative aid to the mayor if you want, and just give them the $75,000, and we could call them whatever. We could call them hallway sweeper for, but they'll be doing specific jobs associated with the mayor's office.
That's for the current position that you're gonna reclassify it.
Right.
And possibly change the salary based on what they do and based on the federal exceptions.
Right.
But there is 2 positions that are new here that should be ordinance before you request money for, correct?
So this is what we want. We have 4 administrative aid to the mayor in the budget right now, right? We wish to take, hold on.
You have 3 special assistants and 1 executive assistant. I feel like when you're saying 4, you might be adding them together.
So we have 1 mayor, 1 chief of staff, 4 administrative aides to the mayor. That's it, 6 people.
No, according to the budget that we have in front of us, we have the mayor, the chief of staff, and 3 special assistants. That's it. You cannot look at the other section. It's the first one.
Is this a typo, Frank?
It's
No,
only
you're
5.
talking about the budget though, right?
Yeah, the budget.
I'm
This
looking
is
at
the
FY
second page
fiscal
after the memo.
year.
But this is your memo. That says 5, but I think it's 6.
Are you talking about the memo or are you talking about the budget?
The budget.
The budget, okay. So
The
Yeah.
budget has 6.
6.
His memo has
Yeah.
5, yeah, okay, so that should be 6, okay.
here's,
He's got the budget page itself. He's got a typo. Just missed one here.
on that page from the official FY '22 annual
So
budget.
Director Bonet, can you explain to the rest of us the document that you handed to Councilor Rodriguez?
Yep, so what I ended up handing Councilor Rodriguez was I think it's page 28 of the FY '22 approved budget by Mayor Vasquez.
Councilor Rodriguez, would you mind if we make a copy of that?
Yep.
Thank you, Councilor Rodriguez.
And that has indicated that there's 4 administrative aides to the mayor, right? And so we
So-
want to take those 2, we want to take 2 of those and reclassify those to executive assistant and constituent services director, because that's the duty they're doing, right? They're still administrative aid to the mayor, but that's really the duty they're doing. If you want to leave them like that until June, until we reclassify, that's fine, but we're still asking for the salary to be increased, so that way we can not pay the overtime and exempt these individuals. And then we want to add an additional administrative aid to the mayor's position.
Councilor Rodriguez?
So, let's say perhaps that we're not moving forward with this, and because the positions are done, the position have to be something else done.
Right.
Either changing the ordinance, reclassifying it, and look
Then
for the
they'll
exceptions.
remain administrative aid to the mayor at $43,750.
And they will remain
Right.
at that, with the
And
current
then I'll probably
budget.
just lose people and they'll just leave.
Yes, so
And pay overtime or comp time,
pay overtime and comp time, yes.
which would probably
Thank you.
be a little bit more than the 65,000 and 75,000 that I'm trying to avoid paying.
Well, essentially, what I'm seeing is here is that you have some duties to do before you present these to us, because without the reclassification on those 4 positions, which is going to be
Well, we could do a reclassification now under the Bennett Associates salary and compensation and the classification plan, or we could wait for UMass Collins, as we had put in the memo, and see how they reclassify the position or reclassify it in a certain format. But you're the city council, you can do anything you want. You can suspend the rules for all you care, right? For all you want, you could do that.
Not
We had-
necessarily.
we had
not necessarily.
conversations-
Well, because what we have in front of us here
No, you
is a
can't.
budget.
They're your rules, they're your laws. You can change them anytime you want to. You could. There were some conversations that occurred, let me just, real quick. There were some conversations that occurred in the Personnel Committee about some positions that were brought up, right? I think it was one of the senior advisor, the other one was a confidential secretary, and they asked everything about money on a Personnel Committee when they should just be asking about, is this a job description that we want to approve, right? Then it goes to the Ordinance Committee, and then they start asking whether they're going to post it internal or not internal. And my thought process was, first of all, the mayor is the one that posts internal if he wants to. It's good to promote from within. You know, all kinds of stuff was going through my mind. But the thing is, in my mind is, if the council wants to promote, to post it external, just create an ordinance and say, from now on, all postings will be external. You have that right as a council to change the rules anytime you want to. You have the right to reclassify a position without the Bennett Associate, without the UMass Collins, just to put a salary right now until the end of the year. You could do that.
Gentlemen, I just want to make sure that we respect everyone's space.
Yes.
So what I would ask is, before speak, please make sure that I'm handing you the floor.
My apologies.
Thank you, Councilor Rodriguez, for giving your time to the Chief of Staff to finish his comment. Councilor Rodriguez.
Thank you for the floor. Well, essentially, what I would like to say is that if the ordinance that we have in place doesn't concur with the current budget, that's the only thing that we are allowed to speak today on this committee. Right. Obviously, there is other process that need to be done before we can talk about other things. And like you said, yes, the city council could do this and can change other things, but we have to have it in front of us. What we have in front of us today is a budget request or adjustment to the budget of the city of Lawrence, to the mayors of the city of Lawrence. And that include things that we just discussed about the interims, that maybe a lot of people agree upon. I'm not saying that I'm not in favor of it. That also include positions that are going to be new positions, like executive assistants, that is going to be $75,000, and the Constituent Service Director, that is going to be also $75,000. The head of the interns, you clarify that, and the 2 interns, you clarify that. That's going to be one line item possibly. That isn't going to include an amount of money. But before we continue the conversation about those 2 positions and the reclassification of the other 4 positions, I think that we should talk about the ordinance that going to correspond to those positions, because that's the way that we're gonna be able to do the right thing and express transparency, like you said, which is it's a great thing. But there is other things that need to happen before we actually adjust the budget in regard to positions that are not on the current budget. We're creating 2 new positions, and we adjusting 3 or 4. Either or, whatever we want to put it. There is a process that needs to happen before that. And if that process is in front of us, of course we're gonna study it, and we're gonna make a determination. But without having that, I don't think that's actually not the right thing, but probably the legal thing to do, because I mean they're not ordinance, those positions. And we are doing one right now as we speak. We're dealing with the senior advisor to the mayor position, which is going to be between 140 to 160,000, and that based on the document we have in front of us.
It was approved the other day at grade 9, 100, max of 120,000 on the ordinance committee.
Yeah, perfect. So the document that was sent to us originally, I was not on that committee. It was that, but that's not the topic today. But what I'm saying is, if those positions get to the city council through a process that is the right process, and I hope to see those positions that we have in front of us today, that you're looking for a budget adjustment, to also be ordinance, and to also go through the ordinance committee and the personnel committee to discuss the duties of those positions and probably create ordinance for those. But I don't see the need of transferring money to the mayor's budget if those positions are not created by the city council and proposed by you, by the administration, and therefore until that point, which if it's needed, I'm assuming that it's going to be just the position going to be justified as of this is why we need those, and probably, I will maybe, consider at that point. When it comes to the other one of the line item here for professional services, it was, I don't know if it was 0, because, I mean, I don't know. Mayor's adjustment is 150,000. What is the plan for that, for the use of that 150,000?
As I mentioned earlier, one of them is to pay for an assessment and studies from the Harvard School of Government, who is currently here in Lawrence conducting, can you hear me? One of them is to conduct or to pay for Harvard School of Government, who is currently conducting an assessment and a survey throughout the community in order to come to the city council and request for changes made to that office. And I talked earlier about how housing and businesses were unequal in the services that are provided in that office. Yeah, so that's part of that. So most likely what you're going to have is, hopefully before the end of the year, maybe have a reorg of that department, take the inspectional services out, because inspectional services is in there, and it was put in there with the previous administration. First thing they did when they first got here was create a housing study, right? Or ask for a housing study. Everybody knew what the housing study was going to say. There's a shortage of housing. Well, there's a shortage of housing across the nation. However, what happened was that study was a catalyst to bring in more funding from whatever, HUD or federal or state, to create more housing. And what we ended up doing was overpopulating the city, and not overpopulated, but overpopulating our schools. And so we are looking now to equal out the services in those departments, so that way we can get businesses, create businesses and expand businesses, so we can get more taxes into our budget. And so we need an assessment from, the smart people in Harvard University to come and tell us how we can do that, how we can do business economic that hasn't been really seriously, expanded in that division. And take inspectional services, and place inspectional services part of public safety where it belongs, right? That's what they do. And so the assessment is not only that, but how to look for ways to create services for young generations that are living here in Lawrence now, to create businesses, expand businesses of current businesses, headhunt businesses to come into the city, so that way we can build that taxable income. So that's the School of Government, that's what they're doing, and more.
Councilor Rodriguez.
So thank you for the answer. So essentially, that one of the project is going to be related to inspection services, or the mayor's office. I didn't get that part when you were mentioning it.
Office of Planning and Development.
Oh, Office of Planning and Development.
Right. And the other one is a program that, an initiative that the mayor wants to bring in some, there's two of them actually. One is not on my cheat sheet, but I just remembered it. One of them is Community and Neighborhood Initiative, in which he hopes to create public safety neighborhood groups to bring in a consultant to help neighbors and neighborhood groups communicate and create some sort of program with the city on crime, more like a neighborhood plan of some sort. That's one. We don't have a contract. We don't have a consultant. We don't have a plan yet. It's just an idea and a vision that we want to go forward.
So do you?
And the other one is, I'm sorry.
No, keep on going.
The other one is, so we want to bring in another school or university, most likely Harvard or UMass or somebody Merrimack College. We want to create a committee or commission or really a committee of 25 to 30 people composed of parents, teachers, counselors, school committee, elected officials, teachers, students, and a lot of people in different communities are stakeholders in the school system. We want to create a plan so we can present this plan to the Commonwealth of Massachusetts on how the city would like to take back its school, and at the same time do what the Department of Education or DESE would like us to do in order for us to get the schools back, right? And so we want the voices of this whole entire community to be put on paper, present the plan to DESE and say, is this plan good enough, and how many years out can we get our schools? The last 3 mayors that have been here since the school's been taken over by DESE have not created a plan, never created a plan. And so DESE was never going to give you the schools without a plan. They got their own plan, their turnaround plan, right? And so we have an alliance board that's been there forever, for 10 years, I'm going to say forever. And we're looking for a different form of governance, a different form to take our schools back. So we'd like to get consultant, some expert on education and building a plan for us. That's part of the $150,000.
This is a point of information. Alliance Board has been here for 4 years. Councilor Rodriguez, do you have any other questions? Go ahead, Councilor Rodriguez. I would say after this question, no, I already gave the point of information. It's just that the LAE Board has been around for 4 years.
4 years?
Yeah, but receivership has been around for 10. Councilor Rodriguez, so you have the floor, and I would say at a certain moment, I'd like to make sure that other councilors could ask questions. And so maybe after this one, if there's any more, we'll give the opportunity, and then we'll go back to you. Okay. Go ahead, Councilor.
So, Chief Bonet, you see the difference as of when we explain things, how things make more sense than just presenting a memo?
I have no problem with that. That's why subcommittees are made, so that way we can explain what we're requesting.
No. What I mean is, whatever you're saying here is different than what we get in the memo. And what we do is study the agenda, study the documentation that we have in front of us, and then have a discussion. But when you present the $150,000 for professional services, it was no explanation. What you're saying right now, and what you mentioned before on the interns, that's different. So that's not a mistake. Trust me, I understand. You probably didn't have that information at the time that you put this memo together. I got you. But it will be highly appreciated if we get that information for each of the line item that you are looking to have an increasement. And that's basically how things could go, a little less explanation from you when you're here in front of us, and probably more knowledge about what you want to do with those money. With that said, I'll yield the floor, and then I come back with more questions.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Levy or Councilor Rosario, do either of you have any questions? Councilor Rosario?
Just a comment. And I agreed on so part with Councilor Rodriguez, but sometimes we as councilors, we cannot just go ahead and voice it out what we think it is, and we should wait for an explanation and maybe request papers and documentation before we go out and voice it out and create fiasco and miscommunicate things to our constituents. I didn't read what Councilor Rodriguez posted.
So Councilor Rosario, I think it might be good for us to just stick with this current presentation and just ask questions around this statement and not necessarily mention other councilors.
Okay, I'm sorry about that. And it was on the perception that every intern was going to get $40,000 due to the fact that I heard some comments. So I'm glad that you actually clarified that. I have some question about an intern getting $40,000 and wondering why. But again, I mean, you brought the right explanation. And again, yeah, I agree with Rodriguez on it should be in better writing and maybe on details that we can actually read better. That way, if we hear anything, we have it on the memo. So for the next time, and yes, we will spec that on the memo for the next time.
A point of information?
So one second, Director Bonet. So Councilor Rosario, I know you made a statement, there was no question, right? So I just want to make sure. Councilor Levy, do you have any questions that you'd like to ask?
Yes, I think so that it was Council President who did some kind of question regarding whatever that is the budget or what is not in the budget that he's most vetted before until we get all of the information. We should table this.
Councilor Levy, are you stating that as a motion, or are you just kind of presenting that option?
I'm asking fair, and then I'm going to do the motion. So can Council President repeat the statement that he did? He's not in there?
No. So from what the Council President said and what I said afterwards is that there's an importance of the Chief of Staff. I wouldn't say that what he said was different than what was presented, but there were many clarifications to what was presented, and that it would be important for us to have that in writing in memo format. So I think that's what we were talking about before, and that seems like, Councilor Levy, seen by your nod, is what you're looking for. Is that correct?
So because I don't have all of the clear information, that inclusive information that was passing around, I would like to make a motion just to table and get all of the requests for each one of the councilors. Right?
Councilor Levy, before you make that motion to table, I know that I did say to Councilor Rodriguez, that if he could give up the floor to allow for others to ask questions. So I just want to go back to Councilor Rodriguez and ask him if he would like to continue his line of questioning, if that's okay, Councilor Levy, or if he's fine for us to go into table. Again, if someone seconds, they can overrule that, but I just do want to make sure that I give Councilor Rodriguez that opportunity. So Councilor Rodriguez. Right. So I said Councilor Levy made a motion to table, If there is no second, or Councilor Levy takes back that motion, Councilor Levy, we can't hear you.
I already said that I can take it back the motions.
Okay,
If
okay.
Councilor Rodriguez still wants to continue doing questions.
Thank you very much, Councilor Levy. See, I love camaraderie. Councilor Rodriguez, you have the floor.
He has some clarification.
I'm sorry, Chief of Staff Bonet. Go ahead.
I'm not trying to be fresh or anything, but I just want to put it for information. Councilor Del Rosario did not make the comment about a Facebook post because he just came out. It was brought up by Councilor Rodriguez, who said he posted this. So we should discuss what was posted because I don't know. I haven't seen it, but if it was the wrong information, and the request is now that I bring in an explanation in writing so he can repost it and correct whatever it is, I don't think that, Gregory Del Rosario certainly had a right to ask about it because it was brought up by a separate counselor. But I know, it could
I would say, Chief,
it could look derogatory, I understand.
I would say, Chief of Staff, at the end of the day, all I can do is make recommendations for any council member here. Everybody's their own boss, and they can just say, nope, I want to, say whatever they want to say, and we live in a democracy, and they can definitely do that unless it goes against like actual rules of the chamber. But Chief of Bonet, I know I interrupted you.
No, it's okay.
Okay, so Councilor Rodriguez, you had other questions.
All right, I will say that, based on my posting, I posted that it was going to be 10 new positions, 10 positions, 5 which are going to be new. And you explained that, Mr. Bonet? No, I have no questions, but I will say a few things that I have on the posting is that I actually posted that it was going to be a total of 10 positions. That based on the memo that we have here, it's a total of 10. You mentioned that it was 6 from before, and the interns is not per position, so it's going to be a lump sum for interns. And I also said that on consultants, it was going to be $150,000 for consultants, which is basically the information that you provide to us. And it was going to be an executive assistant to the mayor that was going to charge $75,000, or it was going to get paid $75,000. And based on what you have here in front of us, we have 3 interns. The head of the interns and 2 new interns, which is going to, based on the information you provide, it was going to be $20,000 plus the other 2 until June 30. To June, at the end of June, it was going to be, and the other 2 is going to be another $40,000. That's based on the information that you provide. And I also mentioned that was going to be for 5 months until June, and it was going to be an adjustment on the mayor's. On the mayor's budget in regard to the use of his vehicle, as you mentioned, that it was going to be $7,200 for the use of the vehicle of the mayor, and that was in the post. I encourage you to go ahead and read it. If you provide us with a different information, of course I will do a second post, a second post based on the information provided, and that's not an issue whatsoever. If it was a mistake, and you think that all their things should be shared with the public, at the end of the day, what I'm doing is sharing the information with the public. And you think that $150,000 is not going to be for consultant, like people, like I say consultant there, but it's going to be consultant that is going to be working on 3 different projects, and each project going to be, as you mentioned, this, and that. I will post it. If I think this is important, in talking about posting, you mentioned it that it was going to be the city was going to provide free COVID testing. I post that. People now are aware. My followers, they are aware there's going to be new testing kits for the people, for the community, which is good. And there is all the things are available that people have the right to know. But based on the information you provide, my understanding was that. And now if you send new information, my understanding will be what you put in writing and present to us. And that's basically it. We have a budget in front of us for the mayor's office, that a few positions, based on my understanding, need to be ordinance. And if they get approved by the council, by all means, I'm pretty sure that they will do a great job for the constituents, for the entire city. But thank you for coming here, and thank you for explaining. Now we're expecting those documentation to be sent to us by on writing.
Chief of Staff Bonet?
Yeah, no, I wasn't critiquing his right to post. That's not what I'm saying. You can post anything you want to. What I was saying is that Councilor De Rosario was responding to something that Councilor Rodriguez had already brought to the table. And so I thought that he should have had an opportunity to finish that statement. It's like in court. You bring it up, it's open to questioning. It's open to cross-examination.
Sure.
Right? You know what I'm saying?
Completely understand. And what I would say, Chief of Staff, as I'm moderating this committee, I presented Councilor De Rosario with a suggestion, and I thank Councilor De Rosario for following it. I would also say what I was trying to avoid is us having a discussion about a Facebook post. And you know, with all due respect to everybody, that's just not what I thought we should be doing at 9:50 p.m.
We post Facebook every
you know,
day.
like people, like we're talking about Facebook posts. It has nothing to do with, you know, what's being presented to us right now. Since we're talking about the Facebook post, I might as well make a comment about it. And, you know, what I would just say, and I think this just goes in general, right? Just, I think, you know, we all have to, you know, learn how to work together. And I think what we need to make sure is that when we are presenting anything, that if there's an opportunity to ask questions, and I think all of us counselors do have those opportunities, the general public doesn't, that we should try to abide by them. But it is what it is. I appreciate the commentary today. There was a lot of great questioning, and I think what I'll ask the council members is, what would you like to do with this motion?
Motion to table.
There is a motion to table. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion to table by Councilor Giovanni Rodriguez. It's been seconded by Councilor Levy. We'll move for a roll call vote. Councilor Rosario.
Yes.
Councilor Levy.
Yes.
Councilor Rodriguez.
Yes.
The chair votes no. We now move.
Point of information. So the motion was to table. Is there any additional instructions? I come back with a memorandum explaining line by line, or just...
Director Bonet, so there was no instruction in the vote, but from what I understand from the commentary of the other council members and the council president, what they're interested in is having a memo that describes sort of your presentation, yeah, so I think that
I just want to be sure, line by line or just certain?
So.
Just certain, line by line. Okay, I got it. I just want to make sure because it was just a motion to table.
So what I would say is that there's probably a difference of opinion within this committee. I would have looked something necessarily like a broad statement in all the pieces that you've worked. I'm hearing from a council member that what he's interested is line by line. At the end of the day, you guys decide what it is you want to present to us.
And adjustments that we just talked about, right? We talked about the interns. I can bring it down to a little bit more, you know. So I'll make sure I get all that in place. I just want to know what the motion was.
Right. No, again, Director Bonet, like, I don't necessarily, like, you know, if you're presenting something for $20,000, and it just so happens that 2 weeks from now, it's really $17,000. What we're talking about is a difference of $3,000 that's going to come back to the general fund. I think whatever it is that you present, by the point that you present, it's already outdated, right? So like, I'm personally not that interested when it comes to like those pieces, so I wouldn't necessarily say, you know, spend your time on it. Counselors, is there any item that you'd like to take out of table matters? If there isn't, is there a motion to adjourn? There is no motion to adjourn? There's a motion to adjourn by Councilor Rodriguez.
Second.
It's been seconded by Councilor Rosario. We'll move to a vote. Councilor Levy.
Yes.
Councilor Rosario.
Yes.
Councilor Rodriguez.
Yes.
And the chair votes in affirmative.